is election night. From Washington State to Washington, D.C., King 5 has you covered.
We are just moments away from the first numbers coming across in Washington State. I'm Chris Daniels in the newsroom. We will look at those races and tell you what voters are thinking.
And today's pouring rain didn't keep the voters away.
Record voter turnout. I'm outside the King County election headquarters as the final ballots of the 2020 election are turned in.
The biggest question of the night, no doubt, is the race for the White House. But also being decided tonight, who will lead Washington State?
Will Washington Governor Jay Inslee be elected to a third term? I'm Drew Mickelson in Olympia with the governor's campaign as the votes are counted.
And I'm Natalie Swaby in Tenino tonight, where a small-town police chief, Lauren Culp, is hoping to move into the governor's mansion.
And here in Washington, unprecedented voter turnout. So the deadline to get your ballot in just passed. But as you can see here from this live look, there's still activity out there. This is the King County headquarters, elections headquarters in Renton. They just locked up this ballot box. We just watched them do it, and some people got their ballots in last minute. Now, there are still people in line registering to vote. If you got in line before 8 p.m., you can still vote. And certainly a lot of activity, a lot of cars out there. At last count, 77.4% of voters here in Washington got their ballots in. That's up from the nearly 65% on election night back in 2016.
So the biggest race of the night, the race for the White House, which everybody has been watching the past several hours, and that could take a while before that's decided. Here are live looks in Delaware, Washington, D.C., where Joe Biden and President Trump are anxiously awaiting for the votes to be counted tonight. Still a lot of votes to be counted. Glad to have you with us on this election night 2020. I'm Greg Copeland.
I'm Jessica Janner Castro. All night we will be keeping a close eye on the presidential race. And any moment now we're expecting our first results right here in Washington State. We want to show you a look at the big races in our state tonight. The governor's and lieutenant governor's office. All 10 congressional seats in the U.S. House of Representatives are up for grabs. And the head of public schools, as well as age-appropriate sex education on the ballots this year. Almost all the polls are now closed. Along with us here in Washington, results will be coming in just shortly from California, Idaho, and Oregon as well. Hawaii closes in an hour, and then it's just Alaska. Polls there close at 10 p.m.
So the race to 270 delegates started 5 hours ago when the first of the polls closed across the country. Here's a look at the latest electoral college map. So the first candidate to reach 270 will be the president for the next 4 years. You can see the West Coast there has already chimed in, although that's kind of a given, although none of the ballots has actually been dropped just yet. That's just the NBC prediction. So counties all across the state have a lot of counting to do before Election Day. More than 3 million ballots were returned.
And all day we have seen really long lines at those ballot boxes and people looking to register and vote because you could still do so today. Britt Moore is joining us live at the King County election headquarters in Renton. Britt, are there still a lot of activity out there, a lot of cars and big lines?
Seeing cars, not seeing a line. We did see a few people kind of running up to the ballot box just to make sure they got their ballot dropped off in time. But 8 o'clock on the dot, we heard the whistles blowing. It was kind of the all stop here. Officials tell me they are excited about what they saw today because those lines were nonstop here at the King County elections headquarters. We know inside earlier today, workers were seen sorting through the ballots, separating them from the envelopes so they can be scanned. As of this morning, King County Elections headquarters had received more than 1 million ballots. Officials are still projecting a 90% turnout, which would bring that count to about 1.3 million ballots. So we'll have to wait and see if that goal was met. Now, I spoke to voters dropping off their ballots, pretty anxious about this election, but they felt it was necessary, even at the last minute, to cast their ballot.
Nobody ever in my family has ever voted, so I feel like it's very important for me to speak up for my family and set a good example.
How do you feel seeing all of this engagement, the lines and everything?
It's pretty nerve-wracking, but it is what it is.
Yeah, those anxious feelings. But again, this ballot box has been locked here and secured at the King County Elections headquarters. All of these ballot boxes have been closed. They are locked, so your Votes should be in by this point. As far as what I'm seeing here in the parking lot, not too much commotion. It looks like for the most part volunteers are just wrapping things up and some of the staff here. But again, we are waiting to find out the exact voter turnout numbers. Once we get those numbers, we'll pass that along to you. For now, live in Renton tonight, Britt Moore, King 5 News.
That's right, Britt. Thank you. Anxiously awaiting those numbers to start coming in as we see those ballot boxes being locked across the state. Of course, everyone across the country watching the presidential race.
Let's get to Chris Daniels right now to break down some of the numbers. We know the West Coast just dropped in, even though those votes haven't been released yet. And so there's a big disparity in the lead right now, but there are a lot of states that have not been called yet.
Yeah, and Greg, I do want to give you one piece of breaking news before we talk about the presidential election. The Associated Press has called the governor's race and says Jay Inslee will serve a third term as governor in Washington state. They waited a full 3 minutes after the official polling closed. But yes, Jay Inslee has won a third term, according to the Associated Press. But let's talk about what has happened over the last several hours across the country, and that is the presidential race that everybody is following, Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And let's bring in our King 5 News political analyst, Scott McClellan, served as the Bush White House press secretary. Ron Sims was the King County executive and also was a deputy director in the Obama administration. So, gentlemen, I'll start with you, Scott. What do you think of these early numbers as they come in the Electoral College across the country?
A little bit surprising. It's a competitive race. This is going to come down to those Rust Belt states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. I think Trump is securing the South. I think he's, before long they're going to call Florida for him. It looks like he's going to hold on in North Carolina, a little bit close. And it looks like he's going to hold on in Georgia. And looking at the numbers in Texas, I think that will be in his column as well. So I think we're looking at a very close race. I don't think we're going to find out the results tonight because of that. Then you look at Arizona, it looks like Biden is running strong there, probably picks that state up. So it's looking pretty close right now, and all comes down to me looking closely at Pennsylvania, maybe Michigan. Looks like Trump's doing okay there right now, but there's a lot of votes to go in those two states. It seems like the economy was a big issue today in the exit polls, and we're going to start seeing questions about the polling that went into today as well, I think.
Yeah, to your point, several 100,000 votes in Philadelphia have not been counted. Several 100,000 votes in Milwaukee in Wisconsin won't be counted until tomorrow. Ron Sims, what's your initial take on what you've seen tonight?
Well, I think I was surprised at how competitive the race was. I think that when you're if I were President Trump, I would be thinking right now about the fact that Vice President Biden has a substantial lead in California, and that's going to be a lot of electoral votes. And the issue is whether it's going to be Washington, Oregon, California, Arizona. That group will add a formidable number of electoral votes toward the Biden presidency if he prevails. It's going to be a long night for every campaign. On the state level, I think that I'd be surprised. I don't think there's going to be many surprises. There's some good candidates, but I also think that you're going to see the re-election of Governor Inslee.
Yeah, and again, the Associated Press has already called that for Governor Inslee. I think there's one interesting storyline developing in the last hour or so. It concerns not only the presidency, but the state of the United States Senate. Already people are calling it the McCain effect down in Arizona. That was a state that Donald Trump won 4 years ago. He did extremely well in Maricopa County, but tonight he is not doing well. Of course, he had a lot to say about John McCain before and after his death. Cindy McCain, his widow, came out and endorsed Joe Biden. So it does look like Arizona is breaking towards Biden's direction as well as the Senate. We do have some more numbers from the state, but for now, let's go back to the studio.
All right, Chris, thank you. Yeah, we're just getting in some numbers here from Ferry, Kitsap, and King County. So let's get to those numbers right now in the race for governor. I believe we're going to start with that. There we go. You can see Jay Inslee leading by a wide percentage point, 76% to Lauren Culp's 24%. Again, these are numbers coming in from Ferry, Kitsap, and King County. Of course, King County, a huge county.
And obviously 21% of the vote in right there. So this is for Lieutenant Governor. No drop. It says 21%, but no, we don't see any votes that have shown up yet on that graphic. Let's move forward. So Secretary of State's office, this is, again, these are all with 21% in. That's the first drop. Kim Wyman with 71% of the vote there, but still a lot more to go before we can actually call that one.
Yeah, and you've been pointing out, Greg, 21% of votes being counted so far in right now. So that means a lot can change, and those numbers can certainly differ throughout the night. We're going to go back to Chris Daniels back in the newsroom for some more analysis on this. Chris.
Yeah, Jessica and Greg, let me walk you over to the King 5 Election Center big board where we can talk more about the governor's race, and you can see those numbers that you were just referring to. We had heard in advance that King County was going to release the numbers on more than 1 million votes right out of the gate, right after 8 o'clock. And this is not good news for Loren Culp. As we've already mentioned off the top, the Associated Press has called this race for Jay Inslee. Loren Culp only got 5% of King County in the primary. He gets 24% tonight. That's a more than 500,000 vote gap statewide of about 3.7 million votes overall. In Ferry County, his home county, as to be expected in Republic, where he's been the police chief, he is winning there tonight. But this is an idea of just the math that he faced in trying to win the governor's mansion. Let's see if we have any other numbers there. We don't. But what also is going to be interesting tonight is we look at the presidential numbers coming in to Washington State. The Associated Press and NBC, again, has already called Washington State for Joe Biden. But Grays Harbor County, that was a Democratic stronghold for years, up until 4 years ago when it voted for Donald Trump. Clallam County has picked the presidential winner every time since 1980, dating back to Ronald Reagan. So we'll see if the streak stays alive in Clallam County here over the next couple of days. For now, back to you.
Yeah, we're watching that county very closely tonight. All right, Chris, thank you. Let's go to Drew Mickelson now, who's live in Olympia for us tonight. And Drew, any reaction yet from the Inslee camp?
We just got word from someone with Governor Jay Inslee's campaign calling that apparent declaration of victory by the Associated Press good news. The spokesperson said that's strong, steady leadership that has been offered in challenging times by Governor Inslee, and he's being rewarded for that. We are expecting to hear from the governor within the next 20 minutes or so. We are on the front porch of the governor's mansion, just adjacent to the legislative building, the state capitol. Usually these are events that are held in big ballrooms in Seattle with hundreds, thousands of supporters, but not in 2020. So the governor earlier said he felt good. He said it was a James Brown kind of day. He was very optimistic, and he was hoping that we were going to get some early announcements. And it appears that we have, at least in his race. Obviously, he is also closely following races all around the country. He has been hasn't been shy about being critical of President Trump. So that is a race that he is obviously going to keep watching. But he will be speaking with us shortly. He also says he is closely watching all of the state legislative races. He's hoping to get a larger Democratic majority here at the Capitol to pass what he called, I want to get this right because I know some folks are going to be very interested in this, a clean energy economy going in the state of Washington. So we will hear from the governor within the hour, perhaps in the next 20 minutes or so. For now, live in Olympia, Drew Mickelson, King 5 News.
Okay, Drew, and his competitor, Loren Culp. Let's get to King 5's Natalie Swaby. She's in Tenino tonight. Any reaction from that camp yet?
Well, yeah, tonight, this rally just moments ago was really loud. A rock band was playing, people were cheering, and then within the last few minutes, someone got up on the mic here, and it's got a little bit quiet. I did talk with Culp about an hour ago, and when I did, he said he was optimistic, he was feeling good. We're expecting to get an update from him about the latest on these results coming up around 9 o'clock. But let me give you some background on the Republican challenger. He is the police chief of Republic, a city of 1,100 people. He was born in Everett, served in the Army, started his own construction business. This is his first time running for political office, and he says his platform advocates a return to respecting citizen rights and accountability for state government. And here's what else he told me. Why do you want this job?
I didn't grow up wishing one day to be a politician, right? I was asked by citizens to run, after I stood up for citizens' rights back in 2018. Citizens asked me to run, and in the summer of 2019, I looked around and I didn't see anybody that I could trust to stand up for my rights, my grandkids' rights, and the citizens' rights all across this state.
And you heard him mention 2018 there. That's when he garnered national attention as a police chief for refusing to enforce a voter-approved gun initiative, that being I-1639. Now, as for what's happening out here tonight, a lot of people not allowed to mask. I asked Culp about that, and he says his point of view is that give people the medical and scientific information and let them make their own decisions about how to protect their health. Right now, I can hear them inside chanting, "We want Culp." We'll be standing by. We are expecting him to talk probably around 9 o'clock, and we'll bring you the very latest. Live for Now and Tonight, Natalie Swaby, King 5 News.
Okay, Natalie, thank you. We'll check in with you throughout the night. Let's go now to our Vanessa Mashanya, who's in the newsroom monitoring what's happening on social media for us tonight. Vanessa, any reaction yet to the governor's race?
Not that very much that I'm seeing. What I'm seeing a lot of are counties telling folks that if you are still in line, stay in line. We've been seeing that lately after the polls close at 8. King County asking you to do that. Pierce County asking you if you are there, stay there. We've heard that message the last couple days now, and we're seeing that on social media. And I just wanted to pull this up. This is from a reporter at the Yakima Herald, and she took a picture of a voter, and she said, this voter said, quote, "I used to not vote. I just kept thinking, oh, well, it's not going to matter. My 2 cents won't count." Well, if you don't put 2 cents in, it won't ever count. And that woman is Myra Lott, 61, of Yakima. So we're seeing a lot of people who are still spirited about this election. Again, the votes are still being dropped in the ballot box. If you are still in line, stay there and you are guaranteed to be counted. But we are keeping an eye on social media, looking for any reaction as we do start to see those results come in. But for now, I'll send it back to you guys.
All right, a lot still to go tonight. We're just getting started. Vanessa, thank you.
We're going to go back now to Chris Daniels in our elections headquarters upstairs in our newsroom. Chris, you know, as we talk about the governor's race, I know that Jay Inslee, he really had a laid back campaign. He really used a lot of his press conferences for COVID-19 to put himself out there. So wondering if you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, it is the bully pulpit, right, of being the incumbent. He didn't do a lot of campaigning, especially with the coronavirus raging through Washington State, and use those daily press conferences as his way to get his face out into the public. Not unlike what we saw with Donald Trump on a national scale with the coronavirus task force press conferences. I do want to point out, before we bring in Ron and Scott once again, the weight of King County already tonight in multiple races. Kim Schrier in the 8th district appears to be leading Jesse Jensen by more than 20 percentage points. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, 77% of the vote in this first initial dump of numbers in King County. In the Secretary of State's race, Gail Tarleton is up by 20 points over the incumbent Kim Wyman, who will likely do well outside the county. And then Bob Ferguson in the Attorney General's race in King County is up by almost 50 points over his challenger, Matt Larkin. So let's bring in Scott McClellan and Ron Sims, our King 5 News political analyst. Once again, as we look at those state races, Ron, let's start with you this time. What do you think on the initial numbers?
Well, I think that it shows that this state's very active when it comes to making sure people get the right to vote, and that people do vote. And if you look at every single elections office in the state, they make it easy for you to vote, easy for you to register, and they encourage it. King County is a large population center, and it actually was at the cutting edge of encouraging people to vote, making it easy for people to vote, having mail ballots, and having drop boxes. So I think that we're seeing this evening in regards to how the citizens of the state voted. I think we're seeing that making it easy and stressing its importance is a road to success. And I think we have a lot to be proud for as a state for the numbers that came in tonight, the people who participated in voting as a matter of their percentage. We did a great job. The citizens here stood up and said, our vote counts. We know it's going to count. And my golly, we're going to make sure that we're heard.
Scott, what's your initial take as we start to get these numbers in across Washington State on those statewide races?
Well, it's still early looking at the results coming in, but it'd be interesting to see where Inslee ends up. It looks like Culp's running a little bit better than I would have expected. Inslee's still going to win with a comfortable margin, but a little bit of a surprise there, I think. And then, look at the Secretary of State's race, and Kim Wyman doing okay so far. In their initial results I'm seeing, that's going to probably be a close one in the end. And can she overcome the Trump headwinds that she has to deal with in the state of Washington? And then you look at, as you said, you start looking at a couple of congressional races. The 10th is going to be an interesting one with two Democrats going head to head. And so we'll be keeping an eye on that, as well as the lieutenant governor's race.
All right, Scott McClellan, we've got multiple voices here in the King 5 Election Center as we're starting to get these numbers come in. I can see over my shoulder the big board is lighting up on the governor's race as well. So we're seeing more of a breakdown now of the regional kind of dynamic with Governor Jay Inslee and Lauren Culp, and Governor Inslee again looking at a third term. For now, let's send it back to you in the studio.
All right, Chris, thank you.
We are waiting for the governor. We just got word that he should be speaking here in about 3 minutes from now. I expect him to step up to that microphone and say a few words. The AP has already called that race, and from the numbers we're getting right now, with about 33% of the vote, and he's leading with 61% right now. So we're going to take a short break. We'll be back with much more election coverage right after this.
Welcome back. Decision 2020, and we continue getting new numbers in for the state of Washington, the elections here in our statewide races and throughout various parts of the state. We're going to go to Eric Wilkinson now, who is getting some numbers in the North Sound for congressional districts 1 and 2. Hi, Eric.
Hey, yeah, we've just gotten some numbers in. We've been watching the ballots literally be brought in here all evening long. And so let's get right to this. Let's go to District 1 here. That is a race between the incumbent Susan DelBene and her Republican challenger, Jeffrey Beeler. Some surprising numbers right off the top here, with Beeler leading 54% to 46% here in this, with these early returns coming in. This is a rematch from 2 years ago when DelBene pretty soundly defeated her challenger. She is seeking her 5th term here. Beeler is a Snohomish County
Didn't he just say
businessman and
those
a
numbers were
three-time
opposite?
Sultan City Council member. And we also will check in. We will check in with the 2nd District as well. That is the longtime incumbent Rick Larson, who is facing off again Tim Haselow. Those two candidates couldn't be more different, really, when you look just right down the party line. Larson is seeking his 11th term since being elected here in 2000. The numbers there, pretty solid for him as expected. 69% for Larson, 31% for Haselow, who didn't really get a whole lot of support from the Republican Party here. These numbers are continuing to come in, and we will keep you updated. And we'll be talking with both of these candidates as the evening wears on, and we'll let you know what they have to say about not just these elections, but also those across the country as well.
Okay, and Eric, sorry for talking over you there. We got a lot of numbers coming in. I just want to make sure everything's matching the way it's supposed to. So keep us posted. Thanks for that.
And as Greg points out, we are getting new numbers. Everything is changing. So bear with us as we get these early returns. Let's go ahead and check on our top races here in the state of Washington. So let's start with the governor's race. I believe we're going to that first. We are going to the president's race first. And here it is. This is the results that we have so far for the state of Washington. So that's how people here in our state are voting. You can see Joe Biden leading with 64% to President Trump's 33%.
All right, now time for the governor here. You can see with this says 99% in. I don't know whether that number's right, but you can see the amount of votes in so far. 3 million votes for Governor Inslee, and it says almost 1.8 for Lauren Culp. It's got Inslee with 63%. We're still checking on those numbers to make sure those are exactly what they're supposed to be.
So let's take a look at the lieutenant governor's race. And so this is an interesting one. This is 2 Democrats in the race. And right now, Denny Heck leads with 58% of the vote, Marco Lias with 42%. And so, again, we're checking on how many percent of votes we have in at this point. But right now, Denny Heck leading that race. I'm
just going to ask my producer right now, is that 99% that's showing up on the graphic, is that accurate? Is that the total that in right now? That's not correct. Okay, I didn't think that was correct. So it's saying 99% in, but that's a computer problem. But you can see right now, even in that race for Secretary of State, we've got Kim Wyman right now with 51 to 49. So we're going to double check all these numbers for you.
And now State Treasurer Mike Pellicati is leading here. That's a Democrat, 56% against Dwayne Davidson. And Dwayne Davidson, the incumbent here. So this could be a very notable race as we watch this throughout the night. But again, early returns still.
Yeah, to the auditor now. It's so far Pat McCarthy there with 61% to Chris Leba, 39%.
Let's go to Attorney General and Bob Ferguson, the incumbent Democrat, leading 60% to Matt Larkin, 40%.
One more here, Commissioner of Public Lands, Hillary Franz. At this point, looks like she will continue to hold that seat. She's got 60% of the vote there.
And now State Superintendent. Now this is a nonpartisan race. It's one of the only statewide positions that is nonpartisan. Chris Rakedahl, he is the incumbent. He is leading right now, 57% to Maya Espinoza, 43%.
All right, to the Insurance Commissioner. And yep, looks like Mike Kreidler will continue to hold that position. He's coming in with 68% of the vote. Again, this is not, I don't believe, a 100% of the vote total counted that you're seeing in the upper right of your screen. That's a computer malfunction, but we're going to get the total for you.
And now here's something that has certainly been on the minds of a lot of voters, and it's a hot topic. Referendum 90. This is sexual health education in the state, and this would make it mandatory to provide sexual health education for kids in schools, and it would be age appropriate. Right now, 60% of voters approving a referendum 90, 40% rejecting that.
Run you through a quick few more here. We've got King County. This is Prop 1 here, the Harborview bonds. This needed 60% approval for all of that money to redo Harborview. Right now, it is being approved by 78% of the vote there.
All right, let's go to King County Charter 1, and that is being approved right now by voters, 81% to 19% rejecting that, so overwhelmingly being approved.
All right, to the King County Sheriff, and this was to decide whether the sheriff should be appointed by the council or should be elected, and right now 57% are saying that that should be an appointed position.
Let's go to King County Charter 6. This is a public safety department structure approved by 63% right now. Voters rejecting 37%, so overwhelmingly being approved.
All right, how about transportation here? So Prop 1 in Seattle, if you're wondering about this is for transportation. That is being approved, no question there, 82% of the vote. That's what it looks like, 71% in.
All right, let's get back to Chris Daniels upstairs in our newsroom with more on our elections coverage. Hi, Chris. All right, let's see if we have Chris. Maybe not. There he is.
We are. The magic of live television and our magic board, our King 5 News Election Center big board. You're talking about Jay Inslee, Lauren Culp. We're expecting to hear from them here at any minute, but this gives you an idea of just the breakdown, Western Washington and Eastern Washington. If we look at that huge gap that Inslee has, a lot of that can be factored into what has happened in King County tonight with that 76-24 breakdown, a half a million vote margin. But if you look around, Lauren Culp's home county, Ferry County, with 100% of the vote tabulated, he did win there. That was to be expected. And he's winning in many of these Eastern Washington counties. But this is interesting right here. In Kittitas, we see that Jay Inslee is winning tonight by 24,000 votes or so, 18 percentage points. That's a bit of surprise given what we've heard from voters there in central Washington. And if we look out on the coast, Grays Harbor County for years was a Democratic stronghold, but it is leaning right now towards Lauren Culp, and as well in Jefferson County, where we know that they were the leaders really in the early vote totals of any county, and they are voting overwhelmingly for Jay Inslee tonight. And this is the county that I'll continue to watch throughout the evening, because we told you Clallam County has voted for the winner for president in every election since 1980. We're talking about 40 years. They have been the true bellwether of the state, and they went for Jay Inslee tonight, 53-47. That's with 100% of the county reporting. But this gives you a great idea of just what we have seen in the run-up to the election, the Eastern versus Western Washington breakdown. It looks like Jay Inslee is doing extremely well tonight in the big counties in Snohomish, King, Pierce, and Kitsap. But let's take a look at Pierce, and you can see, 54-46 in this initial vote dump, 68% of the count now done there in Pierce County. Back to you.
Hey, Chris, I just wanted to chat with you a little bit more. Actually, we're going to get back to you, Chris. Right now, we're watching.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
He's about to speak. Let's listen in.
It is my honor to introduce you all to the current and next governor of the great state of Washington, my husband, Jay Inslee.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
That's pretty nice. I like to kiss, too. Good evening. In fact, great evening. I think it is a great evening. I haven't been this excited since I first operated a bulldozer decades ago. This is not only a huge honor, but it is a big decision that the people of the state of Washington made tonight in so many ways. They made a decision to continue on the path of progress, to continue to follow and honor science, to continue to defeat the COVID pandemic, and continue to be committed to building a more resilient economy. This was a big decision, and I believe it will bear great fruit for the state of Washington. Many people went into this. The most important people are the citizens who voted in the last several weeks. Look, no matter who wins tonight, this was a victory for democracy, because we had unprecedented numbers of Washingtonians who participated by voting. Congratulations to all of the voters. We want to thank all of the people who worked on the campaigns. I want to thank my family, especially my grandchildren, who are an important part of the work that we do here in the governor's office. I want to thank my opponent, Lauren Culp, who gave the people of the state of Washington a choice. So I can tell you this, no matter who you supported in this election, Trudy and I are going to get up every single morning trying to figure out how we can help to improve your lot in life and allow you to realize your dreams. That's what we do. Now, this campaign, this election, was maybe more important than any of the others I've been involved with or seen. And the reason is because we understand we have some unprecedented challenges that have faced our state. But we know this about challenges. They serve to organize and inspire the best within us. And that is happening today when Washingtonians are raising their game and wrapping their arms around each other. They are saving lives. They are committing themselves to protect their loved ones and the larger community. I do believe we are called upon now to find the best of the strength in our character, and that is what we are going to do. Difficult days are ahead, but we know this: better days are certainly in our future, and we intend to get there as fast as we humanly can. I think tonight election vindicated 4 central values of the state of Washington. First is the central value that we stick together. We take care of each other. We're committed to one another. And there's nothing we can't do when we do that. We have demonstrated that principle to great effect already because we have masked up. We have social distance. We have done some of the things that protect not only ourselves and not only our families, but everyone around us in the communities that we love. And frankly, it is why our state is doing better than 45 other states in the United States today when it comes to COVID. It's because Washingtonians stick together. The second value is this: we value our working families in the state of Washington. We fundamentally understand that the strength of your economy is only shown by the strength of your families. And this election result, particularly in the governor's race tonight, I think reflected that that value is alive and doing well in the state of Washington. Because the people elected a governor who has helped lead this state to the best family medical leave in the United States, the first long-term care benefit program for our senior citizens, an expansion of health care to 800,000 Washingtonians. The best place to be an educator is here in the state of Washington, in part because of our massive investments in education. All-day kindergarten, expansions of early child education, the best financial aid program for our college students in the United States, the best overtime rules for our working people. We have produced for the working families of the state of Washington, and that value has been reflected in the election results tonight. We have done great things for working families together, but we are not done yet. I look forward to continuing our progress to have the first public option for health care in the United States. I believe we're the best place for a working family, and we're going to continue that tradition. The third value is this, and it's an important one, I think, for many reasons. We value and embrace science in the state of Washington. It is why we have developed the most technologically oriented, innovative, dynamic economy in the United States. And because we have embraced science, it has allowed us to do great things in the last several months, including to knock down some of the infection rates. So here is our challenge, and here's what we decided tonight. The state of Washington decided to continue to follow science, to continue to follow science in the fight against COVID, to continue to follow science in the fight against climate change. I didn't just win this election tonight, science won, and therefore the health of our children and our grandchildren and our loved ones who are threatened today by COVID and in the long term by the evils of climate change. We know that we can continue to follow science. We know that we will grow our economy if we do so. We know we will get back to work and back to school. We know we will build an economy that is even stronger. We know that we will build clean energy jobs by the bucketful across the state of Washington, cross-laminated timber in Spokane, grid work in Spokane, solar panels manufactured in Bellingham. All across the state of Washington, we will now continue to follow the promises of science. And I believe if you can reach one conclusion about the election today, we have a mandate tonight to fight climate change, to take action against climate change. We have a mandate tonight to fight the COVID pandemic based on the scientific principles that we embrace. And we intend to act on that mandate because Washingtonians deserve no less. I'm committed to that. The fourth value of Washington, it's one of the reasons I so love this state, is we are inherently an optimistic people. We're just believers that we can do anything. We can build, we can create, we can innovate in any realm, in any industry, in any social policy. And that optimism is never more important than right now when we currently have such unusual challenges in our great state. But instead of cowering from our challenges, the decision Washingtonians made tonight was to face and confront those challenges, face on. The voters of the state of Washington tonight did not vote to cower from COVID, or to cower from climate change, or to cower from those forces in Washington, D.C. who want to take away our health care. No, they voted to confront those challenges, to defeat those challenges, and to organize all of the energies of the state of Washington to accomplish those great victories. That's a mandate for victory, and I believe we are going to follow it. So I just want to thank everybody tonight. This is deeply personal for Trudy and me. I'm a fifth-generation Washingtonian. We raised 3 boys in the Yakima Valley. They've all been very, very lucky in marriage. We have 4 grandchildren whose futures are tied to the work that we'll be doing now as governor of the state of Washington. And I can tell you we'll get up every morning committed to that, to you and your children and your grandchildren. So tonight I want to thank you, Washington, for masking up. I want to thank you for committing to beating COVID. I want to thank you for choosing to come together and stick together. I want to thank you for being committed to rebuilding our economy. And thank you for being optimistic about our ability to build a clean energy economy. So please enjoy tonight. We have work to do tomorrow. Come let us move forward together. Thank you. Happy to stand for a couple easy questions. I've only been elected for 18 minutes, so you got to take it easy.
You say there's a mandate for action on climate change?
And we were just listening there to Governor Jay Inslee accepting he is now that projected winner. I guess we're going to listen in here. Just take a moment to listen to what he has to say.
Restrictions in place for COVID. What do you see this push moving you towards?
Well, the first thing is to continue our efforts. It's a mandate to continue our efforts. We today have some of the most successful efforts against the COVID pandemic. And I believe this is a vindication of that and a mandate to continue those efforts, what we're doing right now. The future can only be answered by the future, but right now we should continue what we're doing. We are social distancing. We are masking up. Now we know we have to be more dedicated to that in our homes because the science has shown that now we are having more transition in our homes. We're wearing masks, we go to the grocery store. We're wearing masks if we go to the office, but we need to have social distancing and masking in our homes to prevent transmission. On climate change, we have done tremendous work in our state. I am so proud. We've got the best electrical grid bill in the United States. We have the best energy efficiency bill in the United States. What we need is a way to stop the pollution from our transportation sector. And I am looking forward to working with legislators to get that job done.
Governor, it's rare in this state to have a third term. In fact,
All right, so Governor Jay Inslee accepting a third term as governor for Washington State, and we can project he is the winner officially with 68% of the votes coming in. He leads with 60% against Lauren Culp's 40%. In his victory speech that we just heard there, he really reiterated his promise to follow science, saying that he is going to increase clean energy jobs here in our state, continue to follow his science guidelines that he's been looking towards as we fight the COVID-19 pandemic. And so there you see the numbers on your screen. Again, that's with 68% of the votes being counted, and we can project Governor Jay Inslee a third term now as governor of Washington State.
Lauren Culp put up more of a fight than a lot of people gave him credit for. He's in tonight, and that's where we find King 5's Natalie Swaby. Have we heard any reaction from the Culp campaign yet?
No reaction yet. We are expecting to hear from them here shortly. I want to get you right inside the rally. Let's take a live picture so you can see what's happening right now. We are at a private residence in Tenino where the public was invited, and you can hear the music. It's had a live band out here all night. People excited out here all night, and a lot of people still here waiting to hear from Culp. I can tell you, I talked with him tonight around 7 o'clock, and at that point he told me he spent the last 16 months talking with excited voters, and he was feeling optimistic at that point. And background on him, this Republican challenger, he's the police chief of Republic, a city of 1,100 people. He was born in Everett, he served in the Army, he started his own construction business, and this is his first time running for political office. He says his platform advocates a return to respecting citizen rights and accountability for state government. So that's what we know about him, and now we're just waiting to hear what he has to say about the projected winner. And back out here live, I was told that he should be going up in front of the crowd around 9 o'clock tonight. We'll keep watching and we will keep you posted. But for now, live from Tenino, Natalie Swaby, King 5 News. All
right, Natalie, thank you. Let's take a look at what's happening around the rest of the state right now. We've got Washington Democratic Party Chair Tina Podlodowski on with us right now to kind of break down how the night's going so far. I know we're only 45 minutes removed from the polls closing, and I know there are people still in line, so we have some numbers yet to wait for. First impressions of how the Democrats did in Washington tonight.
First impressions is that we're doing really well in Washington tonight. Obviously, Governor Jay Inslee with an historic third term. We look to be picking up at least 2 state Senate seats with Helen Price Johnson and Tawana Nobles in the 10th and the 28th, respectively. Looks like 4 to 5 different state House seats could be pickups for us as well. So we're pretty excited about that. Mike Pelliciotti is leading quite comfortably in the state treasurer's race, getting that seat back for Democrats. So it's looking pretty good for Democrats tonight.
What about Congress? I know a lot of eyes are on the 8th and the 10th tonight. What are you thinking so far there?
Kim Schrier looks to be comfortably ahead and returning to Congress in the 8th Congressional District. I think we'll see as the last couple of votes come in, but it's looking very good that Congressman Schrier returns to Washington, D.C. It's a tougher race down in the 3rd with Carolyn Long versus Jamie Herrera Butler. We're still looking to see how that shakes out, but we're buoyed by the fact that we've got a couple of House seats that are up down there. Tanisha Harris in the 17th District, a key part of Vancouver, looks to be up and winning in that particular seat. So we're going to wait and see how these last votes turn out.
Any big surprises so far here?
I think around the country, everybody's seeing that it's tight. I think here in Washington State, it's no exception that it's that tight in different places. But we seem to be right on track with what we thought we would pick up in these various seats. And so it's a good night for Democrats in Washington State.
Well, Tina, I know you got a lot of numbers to keep track of tonight, so we appreciate your time.
You bet. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks.
Let's go back now to our chief political reporter, Chris Daniels, with more on the presidential race as it's shaping up here in Washington State and, of course, beyond as we watch the entire nation.
Yeah, I want to take a deeper dive into the numbers that we now have here on the governor's race across Washington State. Whitman County, we're waiting on you. Otherwise, we've got everybody reporting at this point. And you can see the gaps here on the governor's race. If I click the right button there, and I can show you that Jay Inslee has a 20-point advantage statewide. Again, still waiting on Whitman County, and he really did well in King County tonight, 76-24. But let's go back to that presidential map as in terms of Joe Biden and Donald Trump and how they did across Washington State. Again, Joe Biden did extremely well in King County, 78-21. But here's the county I want you to watch tonight. We already said Culp County picked the presidential winner every election since 1980, dating back to Ronald Reagan. You see the light blue there. And Culp County tonight, 54-45 for Joe Biden with 68% of the vote in. So we will see if the streak continues with Culp County as the numbers continue to roll in over the next day or so. But if you're a Joe Biden supporter, you're holding on to anything tonight, and you're holding on to what's going on in Culp County.
All right, Chris, thank you.
A lot of numbers to manage tonight, that's for sure. All right, let's talk a little social media, because obviously as more numbers continue to come in across the country and of course here in Washington State, people are reacting to that. Let's get to Vanessa Mashanya up in the newsroom with a look at what they have to say so far.
Well, Greg, we're actually watching some breaking news happening in Seattle. Some demonstrations have broken out within the last hour and a half or so, and I want to get you to some tweets by the Seattle Police Department, who've been keeping an eye on the action. So there were two groups at the beginning of these demonstrations that both started around 7 o'clock. One started at South Lake Union. The other started from Cal Anderson Park in Seattle's Capitol Hill. So the most recent tweet from Seattle Police, they say marchers are moving traffic barricades into the roadway. Pedestrian interference warnings have been given. Group is westbound on Lenora Street from Westlake Avenue. They're urging caution if anyone is driving in the downtown area. And we have some video here from a little before that last tweet of the group from Denny Way. Again, police say they have issued multiple dispersal warnings to these groups, so we're keeping an eye on that. Here's another tweet about a dispersal warning to the group on Denny. And also in Portland, we've been seeing some demonstrations break out. Here is our Mike Benner. He's from our sister station down there in Portland, KGW, talking about demonstrators hitting the streets so far. We haven't heard of any injuries or arrests, but we are keeping our eye on, again, especially those two demonstrations happening simultaneously in Seattle. But for now, I'll send it back to you guys.
All right, Vanessa, thank you.
We're going to take a short break. We're going to leave you with a look at do we have that map right now?
There
we
it
go.
is.
Look at the presidential map. You can see still a lot of states to be decided, and some of them with a lot of electoral votes. Right now, Joe Biden in the lead, 192 to 114, the magic number 270. And a lot of those electoral rich states, Texas, Florida, Georgia, Pennsylvania, still to be decided tonight. We'll take a short break, back right after this.
And welcome back as we continue to track all the votes coming in here in Washington State. We're going to go to our colleague Glenn Farley, who's in Issaquah tonight. He is tracking things there as people continue to turn in their votes and as those ballots are collected tonight. And Glenn, I know Congressional District 8, a big topic there.
Yeah, and what you're looking at in our picture right here is the collection of those ballots. The cutoff here was 8 o'clock. There wasn't a line, but there was a steady group of folks who just kept coming in here all the way up to the deadline. And you can see there's quite a haul here that these King County election folks are putting into a box that will be sealed up, taped up, and set apart and will be taken back to King County elections. Mind you, these ballots will not be counted today. They will be counted probably tomorrow or the next day. So let's go to the race here. If you can bring up the graphic. This is Dr. Kim Schrier versus her challenger, Jesse Jensen. We are still waiting for a key portion of this 8th Congressional District, that being Chelan County, to go ahead and report. But even with Kittitas, part of Douglas, mainly East Wenatchee, a good chunk of King County, and Pierce County, it looks like Kim Schrier is in the lead at 54% to about almost 46% for Jesse Jensen. Now, I did talk to Jesse Jensen a few minutes ago. We weren't able to get that sound turned around, and I said, based on those numbers without Chelan County, how optimistic are you? He says he's pretty optimistic, and one of the reasons is he says a lot of Republicans he expected, of course he is a Republican, were going to be voting later, not so much in the early voting. We've seen a lot of people voting here, yesterday and today. So again, this is voting. This is democracy in action here. As you're seeing, these votes have been gathered. They're going to head off. You can see the close sign there with the legal tape that this ballot box is done. These ballots heading in, and we will keep tabs on the 8th Congressional District race as it develops tonight. Live in Issaquah, Glenn Farley, King 5 News.
That's for sure. Glenn, thank you very much. We'll get back to you in a little bit.
Let's take a look at some more of our results, and we're going to start with Referendum 90, and that race we can now call. Referendum 90, voters approving that referendum by 60% to 40%. You see that check mark next there to approve, and that is a law that Governor Jay Inslee signed into law earlier this year, the law making it mandatory for public schools to provide sexual health education to all K through 12 students. It's age-appropriate lessons, and voters approving that.
Let's get you to Congressional District number 3. That is with Jamie Herrera Butler, the Republican, versus Carolyn Long. And it looks like Butler is going to hang on to that seat with 54% of the vote. That's with 68% of the vote in so far.
We're going to take a short break right now. We'll have much more coming up for you in just a moment.
I've been excited all year to get to vote out. Yeah. It's an election like I've never experienced in my long life.
I'm so excited to be here. It's like I had a little tear on the way in, which I've never had before on election day.
It's my right and my duty. I'm an American, and it's our privilege to be able to vote for those that we want to govern our cities and our country. So for this, I'm thankful. I've been blessed.
All that excitement about the election meant long lines at some ballot boxes today. So many people showing up earlier tonight. Election officials urge people to go to some other ballot boxes just to skip the line in some places.
Let's take a look at some of the other results that we are following tonight. We're going to begin in Pierce County and give you kind of a look at some of the races down there. For Pierce County Executive, Bruce Stammeier, who has held that position, is leading. This is with, well, this only says 1% of the vote, but we've got 374,000 votes in so far, so I think that's probably more than 1% of the vote. He's got a comfortable lead there.
And for Pierce County Sheriff, Ed Schroyer leading with 66% of the vote. We can project that Ed Schroyer here is the winner of Pierce County Sheriff, the race against Cindy Fajardo. So again, Ed Schroyer taking that seat.
Okay, what else do we have in Pierce County? We've got County Council right now there. District 2, Hans Zager has got 52% over the 48%, and so he's leading there.
Let's go to Pierce County Council District 3. Amy Kruver leading 69% and the projected winner in this race.
And a couple more for you there in District 4. Ryan Mello going to walk away with that one. He's got 65% of the vote.
And one more here, District 6 in Pierce County. And Janie Hitchin leading there, 53% of Jason Wallen's 47%. Again, Hitchin leading in that race.
We're going to get back to Chris Daniels right now. We've got a lot of numbers that have been coming in, a lot of votes still to be counted, but we know how many. I think it was 3.7 million that had been returned by today before the 8 o'clock closure. Who knows how many after that? So.
Yeah, I wanted to throw out some detail on another race because it appears to be the closest statewide race at this hour, and that is the Secretary of State, Kim Wyman, the Republicans have held that seat for 40 years. There was a question coming in about the popularity or unpopularity of Donald Trump, how it might impact that race. And we can see it's staying pretty true to form with what happened in the primary, with Kim Wyman winning most Washington counties with the exception of King, Whatcom, and Jefferson. And she has about a 3-point lead on Gail Tarleton, the Democrat from Seattle. So that is going to be one definitely to watch over the next few days. As far as the state of the state races and the presidential race, let's once again bring in our King 5 News political analyst, Scott McClellan, the former White House press secretary under George W. Bush, and Ron Sims, the former King County executive who also served as the deputy director in the Obama administration. We have talked a lot of numbers over the last hour. Gentlemen, Ron, let's start with you. When you look at these state races, we already heard from Jay Inslee tonight. What stands out?
I think that the voters selected very well. I mean, and I was intrigued by the fact that you have a Republican Secretary of State and they voted her back in. I think the voters of Washington know their governments and they know what they want from their government and the elected officials there, and they chose very, very wisely and fairly. We have a group of people who are collaborative in regards to how they do their work, and they talk to the voters and they talk to the citizens, always trying to improve what they can do. So I was very pleased today with the outcomes that I saw in regards to Washington state voters. We are a conscientious state. We love our democracy, we love our country, and my God, we're going to get the very best to do the very best work for us.
Scott McClellan, let's talk about the road to 270. I just see that NBC is now projecting that Joe Biden will win the state of Virginia, but it does, as you said, look like a night where we won't know the result by the end of the night. What states are you looking at now as we go on the road to 270?
Well, we're looking at the Rust Belt states, or part of the blue wall that Trump managed to break through in 2016. what is going to happen in Pennsylvania, what is going to happen in Wisconsin, what is going to happen in Michigan. Right now, Trump is leading in those states, but there are a lot of mail-in ballots that are not counted at this point, and they won't be tonight, it appears. And then even Minnesota, is that a potential close state there? I don't think so, but right now, if you're looking at the numbers and you say that Trump holds on to all those states in the South that are still not called, Florida, Texas, Georgia, North Carolina, he pulls out Ohio. It's just recently projected that he's now the winner there. He's looking at 247 or so electoral votes at that point. He gets Pennsylvania. That puts him pretty close to being reelected. So it's going to be anxious overnight, and we're going to see how things play out over the next day or two in those Rust Belt states. I think that when you look back at this, the exit polls said that the economy was by far it had a significant margin over COVID as the issue that voters were focusing on. And we know that that is an issue in the polls that favored Donald Trump. And then you look at what he did in some of these battleground states. Did those new registered voters that the Republicans were able to bring out, did that help him? And I think in some instances it's saying yes, but we don't know what's going to happen in those Rust Belt states. And Biden, I think, still is in a pretty strong position to win, but it's going to be close.
Yeah, and you called it in advance, talking about the state of Texas, your home state where you spent so many years and so many campaigns. It does look like Donald Trump's going to eke that one out tonight, which had been a big Democratic prize as well. Arizona looks to be trending, potentially flipping for Joe Biden in this election, which will be a story in itself. Ron, I know you've been tracking this throughout the night as well. What are you keeping an eye on as we look towards that race to 270?
I think we forgot to mention California. And they're going to have, and I think that is going to be a Biden state. So I think that no one's going to sleep easy. I think it's going to take a while, at least all the evening and most of the morning before we know who the next president is. But I think that right now I'd rather be, I think Joe Biden's in I would worry, but I think he's in a position to be the next president.
Yeah, what do you think as you see these numbers tonight coming in from across the country, Ron? As Scott was alluding to, the economy. What is driving the vote, do you think?
Well, I think that the economy was driving the vote. I think people are saying, we have employment, our economy seems to be growing well, and that broke in favor of Donald Trump saying, I'm going to continue that process. So that was a benefit to him. Whether or not that is going to be in the end, when people begin to look at other factors and issues, whether that is going to be the thing that turns them or is saleable to them so that they would vote for him, I don't know. California and Texas, California in particular, Arizona, state of Washington, Oregon. It's going to be interesting hearing their voices in this debate.
We're going to talk more about the numbers throughout the evening, especially here in Washington State. Scott and Ron, thank you. For now, let's send it back to the studio.
Yeah, things are a little more clear-cut here in Washington State for the most part than they are across the country. Chris, thank you.
Let's go to Britt Moore now, who's in Renton at the King County Elections headquarters. And Britt, earlier today, I know it was pretty chaotic there. How are things now?
Yeah, quite the difference right now. The parking lot has cleared out quite a bit. We've seen some of the staff members, volunteers just kind of pouring out of the building as things wind down for the night here. Throughout the day, King County Elections headquarters was pretty busy, so much so they had to start directing people to other drop-off locations just because so many last-minute voters were piling in, dropping off their ballots. But election officials tell me they are excited about what they saw today. In fact, we caught the final minute before the ballot box was locked and sealed off there. A lot of people just rushing and kind of running to get their ballots dropped in at the last minute as well. Inside of election headquarters earlier today, workers were seen sorting through the ballots, separating them from envelopes and allowing them to be scanned in the coming days. Now, as of this morning, King County Elections headquarters had received more than 1 million ballots, Officials are still projecting a 90% turnout here, which would bring the count to about 1.3 million ballots. So we'll have to wait and see if that goal is in fact met. Now, I spoke with voters earlier today, dropping off their ballots, pretty anxious about this election, but they felt it was necessary, even at the last minute, to vote.
Nobody ever in my family has ever voted, so I feel like it's very important for me to speak up for my family and set a good example.
How do you feel seeing all of this engagement, the lines and everything?
It's pretty nerve-wracking, but it is what it is.
Yeah, a lot of anxious feelings surrounding this election tonight. Outside of the 1 million votes that were already counted tonight, King County Elections says they plan to have most of the ballots counted by Friday. Meanwhile, we'll wait and see if King County was able to reach that 90% voter turnout. For now, live in Renton tonight, Britt Moore, King 5 News.
All right, thank you, Britt. Nice to see it a little bit calm there because, boy, those workers have been putting in some really long hours.
Nothing like getting those votes in at the last minute. Yeah. All right, we're going to head to Olympia momentarily, talk about the governor here. Wanted to show you what we have so far. This is with 68% of the vote in so far. And remember, most of the counties will do one large ballot dump, and that's all we'll get for the night. So these numbers won't change much until tomorrow, and we'll get daily numbers. But you can see there, Governor Inslee, the winner here, 60% to 40%. Let's get to King 5's Drew Mickelson. He's in Olympia tonight. Talked with the governor. We heard from the governor a short time ago, Drew.
We did. Governor Jay Inslee called it a great night. He will be returning for a third term. He'll be the first governor in Washington since Republican Dan Evans did it in the 1960s and 70s to have a third term in Olympia. The governor said Washington state voters have chosen to, quote, continue on the path of progress. He says
no matter who you supported in this election, Trudy and I are going to get up every single morning trying to figure out how we can help to improve your lot in life and allow you to realize your dreams. That's what we do. It's because we understand we have some unprecedented challenges that have faced our state. But we know this about challenges. They serve to organize and inspire the best within us. And that is happening today when Washingtonians are raising their game and wrapping their arms around each other. They are saving lives. They are committing themselves to protect their loved ones and the larger community. I do believe we are called upon now to find the best of the strength in our character, and that is what we are going to do.
The governor thanked his opponent, Lauren Culp, calling him a courageous opponent, saying he was glad that the voters had a very distinct choice in this election. I asked the governor if he has a mandate perhaps for climate change. Could that mean that he will pursue a tax of some sort? He would not answer that question. Someone else asked about his thoughts on the presidential race, and he said we need to count all the votes, and he also said that folks could be, quote, on tenterhooks for days. He is hoping that there is civility out there and people will be patient in the coming days, which it could be that long before we know who will be in the White House. For now, here at the Governor's Mansion in Olympia, I'm Drew Mickelson, King 5 News.
All right, Drew, thank you. We want to get to some breaking news we're watching in Seattle right now, a march happening, and we find Ted Land at Mercer and Boren. Is that right, Ted?
That's right. A large group is heading up toward Capitol Hill on Mercer, followed behind them by several police about a block or two back. There are a few hundred people here in the streets chanting. They've been blocking some of the traffic here on Mercer and continuing to move up the street. We see the police here on their bicycles coming up the sidewalk here with lights on their helmets. This is the back end of that group, and they're trying to keep the group moving. If you look off into the street to the right here, we see the police with their batons and some vehicles continuing to push this group along Mercer. And then if we pan over to the right here, you can see where they're heading, the large group with the flags in the distance there, moving up the road. The police are trying to keep them out of the street to keep traffic moving. We do know of another group that's marching through downtown Seattle, not too far from where we are here today, but there are two groups. This is one of them. I'm letting you listen in to some of the announcements they're making on the loudspeaker here from the vehicle in the middle of the street. They're telling people to keep moving, to stay out of the street. They are trying to keep this group moving up the hill, and they haven't really let them stop. We know of one arrest, I think, at one of the other demonstrations so far this evening, but we're not sure if there have been any here tonight. But clearly a very large police presence with the vehicles, the bicycles on Mercer here. It looks like they're stopped here and continuing to move up the hill toward Capitol Hill. That's where a group was gathering earlier tonight, but two groups now tonight on the move.
Yeah, certainly causing some traffic there, Ted, as you mentioned. Hopefully no other disruptions as we watch this throughout the night. Thank you for that report, and we'll check in with you shortly.
Now, we kind of had an inkling that this might happen. Let's bring in former Seattle Police Chief Carmen Best, who's King 5 law enforcement analyst now. Carmen, thanks for coming on. We knew something like this might happen, regardless of how the election might go. From what you've seen, how do you expect things to go tonight?
Well, one of the things I can tell you is that, as you already know, Seattle Police Department, along with many other agencies in the area, have been planning for potential protests and demonstrations throughout the area, regardless, as you noted, of the outcome of the election. Clearly, with the trending that we are seeing tonight, there's anticipation that there might be more protests early on than anticipated. But the officers are prepared. As you can see, there are a lot of officers out in Seattle specifically, but other organizations and agencies across the area are also preparing and staffing up, as well as our federal partners. So right now, the officers are tracking the group, trying to keep the roadways as clear as possible, allowing people to exercise their First Amendment free speech rights, but at the same time, they're going to try to make sure that there's no property damage or no one injured. I mean, this could go on for some time. We're still very early in the evening, and so they're going to make sure that they modulate their resources accordingly.
And Carmen, we heard from a reporter that possibly one arrest already tonight, but what are the police there on the ground looking for? What's the tipping point that they're watching for as the night progresses?
Well, clearly, as with any demonstration, they're going to be looking for issues of law violations that involve significant injury to the officers or others who are participating, putting others at risk, and then putting significant property damage at risk. While that's not the priority, if there's an opportunity to make a lawful and safe arrest for property damage, that will occur as well. Mostly the officers are just trying to make sure that they aren't the ones that are inciting anyone to act, but also trying to keep things as safe as possible for all the participants or anyone else that's out and about in the city tonight.
Yeah, and Carmen, as you were talking there, it looks like as we're watching these live pictures, it looks like police actually got someone out of a car and seemed to be making some sort of other arrest there. And obviously this is an ongoing situation that we're monitoring very closely.
I know that, Carmen, we saw a lot of the protests over the summer. The weather was much better. Obviously, it's raining out tonight, and one would think that crowds here generally don't like the rain as much. It doesn't look like it's pouring down rain. Have you found in all your years that weather plays a role in how long they last?
Well, it can play a role, but often it's the nature of the issue at hand. When there's something that causes a lot of concern and emotion with crowds, you will find that they will come out in any kind of weather to ensure that their voices are heard. When things are less provocative, if you will get often smaller numbers, and weather can play a role and a factor in what's happening. But here tonight, it's unprecedented, I guess I would say, the number of times we've used that word unprecedented, but we are truly in different times with the national pandemic that's been going on for months now. In addition to that, the civil unrest that has occurred. So we're in a unique time, and with this national election going on and folks being so polarized, it really is the confluence of all of this really makes it a much more volatile situation than what we have normally experienced.
All right, King 5 law enforcement analyst Carmen Best, we want to thank you for your time this hour. I know we'll be checking in with you throughout the night, especially as we continue to watch those protests as they continue, and it probably a very long night for law enforcement as well.
Let's get to Vanessa Mashani right now. She's up at the breaking news desk and also following what's going on with social media, and I'm sure a lot of this is starting to come in now.
Yeah, Greg, we're seeing a lot of response from law enforcement talking about more the traffic impact that the protest is having in the Seattle downtown area. We do know, though, that, again, one arrest has been made in these simultaneous demonstrations that are happening at the same time in Seattle. So let's get to some of these tweets we've been seeing. This is from Trooper Rick Johnson from not too long ago. He says that northbound and southbound I-5 to Mercer Street, they are closed right now, and that's due to a protest on Mercer Street. So as far as we know, the protesters haven't gone on to the freeway, but this is a precautionary measure that is being taken by Washington State Patrol. Now, here's a view from SDOT traffic cams of the group. Again, this is very recent. This is, again, a demonstration at Mercer Street and Terry Avenue, and they say the demonstration is heading east. So they urge anyone to use alternate routes if you are planning on going through the city today. And we've also been seeing some video from what looks like people on the ground. This is some movement of the Seattle police. It looks like they have some bike officers on the ground. This looks like downtown Seattle, so we're keeping an eye on that as well. And again, so the police, they say that they have provided multiple public safety warnings to the group. This is also known as dispersal warnings that we've talked about a lot when we're covering protests. The officers on a bullhorn or a loudspeaker asking the groups to leave. And they say here in this tweet, individuals have continued to put items in roadway. They've said that they have been moving traffic barriers into the road. They say this protest group has been, and also including nails in this tweet. So again, one person is arrested, and we're also watching some video coming in from Portland. There are also what looks like a large protest happening in downtown Portland. So here's a video from someone on the ground there. Looks like a big group of marchers right there on the ground. And then we have some more video. This is from earlier tonight from Seattle Police Department there. They have their loudspeaker device on their cruiser, and you see the group of protesters in the distance. So again, we do know that there are two groups of protesters right now demonstrating in downtown Seattle. If you're in your car trying to head through that area, just take caution, and we'll keep an eye on the situation. But for now, back to you guys.
All right, Vanessa, thank you. Joining us now is Caleb Heimlich. He's the Washington State Republican Party chairman. Caleb, thank you for your time tonight and for being with us. I want to get first your initial reaction to the results that are starting to come in tonight.
Yeah, it's been a interesting night, pretty positive for Republicans at the national level with some good Senate wins. Certainly going to be a very, very close presidential election that with the president up in Florida, up in Georgia, up in North Carolina, there's certainly a path towards an electoral college win. So that's going to be very close. And obviously a little bit more disappointing results for Republicans here in Washington State. We've obviously got a decent amount of ballots still to count, between 600,000 and maybe up to 1 million, depending on ballots still coming in. So there's going to be a lot of close legislative races that could move in our direction in the coming days. We'll wait and see and make sure that every vote in Washington State is counted.
Caleb, you said a bit disappointing here in Washington State. No doubt, no secret that Washington is certainly a blue state, and we saw Jay Inslee, historic third term, taking that seat once again. But I do want to focus in a little bit on the Secretary of State race. As you mentioned, still many votes to be counted. And in that race, Kim Wyman is leading 52% to Gail Tarleton's 48%. Those initial numbers that we have with about 68% of the votes in so far. So we could see Wyman take that for a third term, but it's very close, and we expected that race to be pretty tight. Your reaction on that, and if it's a result of what's playing out in national politics?
Yeah, I mean, President Trump is getting about 36% in Washington State. In King County, he's getting about 22%. Whereas, as you said, Secretary Wyman, statewide 52%, in King County in particular, right at 40%. We anticipate, based on our data, that the late ballots should trend Republican. So I'm optimistic that we will hold Secretary Wyman. She's done an excellent job administering our elections, but the Democrats dumped over $1 million in the last couple weeks into that race, doing everything they could to defeat her. But we'll see how the ballots break, but I'm optimistic that she will be reelected for her third term.
And 2 congressional districts I know the Republicans are looking at closely tonight, Congressional District 3 and 8. Any reaction on those races so far? I know those are pretty close too.
Yeah, absolutely. We're very, very encouraged by the results in 3, with Congresswoman Jamie Herrera Butler winning currently by over 20,000 votes. So pretty healthy margins there. And then in CD8, we're down by about 9 or 10 points. Again, we'll see how the late ballots trend. There's still a path if we get some great results and great trends in the next couple days. But I think that race will tighten. We'll see by how much.
All right, Caleb, anything else you want to mention tonight as we say goodbye to you?
No, just have a great evening. Happy Election Day, and thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being with us.
And as we head to break, look at some of the congressional districts here. District 1, you've got Susan Delbene with 61%, holding a firm lead there. District 1 with 71% in. Now to District 2, and Rick Larson looks like he's going to hold on to that seat handily. That's with about 69% of the vote in. He's got 66%. District 4, Dan Newhouse, the incumbent Republican, with 65% of the vote. He's not going anywhere. And in District 5, Kathy McMorris Rogers holding on there with 63% of the vote in. She's got 60%. We'll take a short break. Back after this.
Welcome back. And just moments ago, gubernatorial candidate, Republican candidate Lauren Culp taking the stage, saying he won't concede until all votes are counted. This is in Tenino. Let's listen in.
We are going to let everyone's voice be heard and every vote be counted. as well. Some things that make you go, huh, really? Yeah, 60% of the population of this state want the comprehensive sex ed bill? Really? No idea how that happened, right? Everybody I've talked to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people over the last 15 months. I've not met anyone who wants that. And they're telling us it's passed by 60%. You've got to be kidding me. Like I said, we're going to let every vote be counted, we're going to let every voice be heard, and we're going to let the counties that haven't reported yet report. We will see what happens tomorrow night, right? I want to thank everybody who has worked their tails off on this campaign. All the supporters, all across this state. Grassroots is what this campaign has been about. And grassroots is what is going to help to turn this state around. No matter what happens at the end of the count, you know, they'll probably count for the next week or so. No matter what happens at the end of this, when all the votes are counted, we the people need to continue to let our voice be heard and stand up for our God-given constitutionally protected rights. The support I have seen all across this state for our rights, for we the people, for regular working people, it's been tremendous. Absolutely, I am so proud of this campaign and what we have done and what we will continue to do is be active in the political process and not bow down to the left special interest groups and keep fighting for what this country was founded on. I'm very proud of all of you. I'm very proud of all the people all across this state who go to work every single day, provide for their family, don't look for a handout. That is who we are. That is what is going to change things. No matter what the count ends up being in a week or two on this election, we the people cannot give up, ever.
All right, so we were just listening to Republican gubernatorial candidate Lauren Culp speaking in Tenino, and you can see he is continuing to speak to his supporters. We'll check back in on what's happening there in just a few moments. Right now, we want to talk to Dr. Kim Schrier, who is the incumbent in the Congressional District Race 8. Dr. Schrier, thanks for being with us tonight. I want to ask you how you're doing tonight and as those results come in.
Hi, thank you for having me. And I'm feeling really good about the results so far. There's still a lot of ballots left to count, but I'm so encouraged that we had record turnout in this election, and I hope all future elections have this kind of turnout.
And Dr. Schrier, so I know this is certainly a race that we've been watching carefully, and that's because you are the only Democrat to have ever held on to that seat since it was created in the early 80s. Republicans really were hoping that they had a chance to flip it tonight, and I know we haven't called this race yet, but you are leading right now by about 9 points. And so about 8 points, I should say. And are you feeling confident that these numbers will hold?
I am. I think they will hold. I think we're getting, representative numbers from all of the parts of the district. But we'll wait, and there's still a lot of votes to be counted. So I feel good about these numbers. I feel really good about the way that I've served this district, traveling everywhere, 67 town halls, joining the agriculture committee, just making sure that I really could faithfully represent the 8th district.
Yeah, and Representative Schrier, I want to get your take on what's happening across Washington state. It's a pretty good night for the Democrats.
I think it is. And I think we've shown in many ways, both in the state and nationally, that When you put Democrats in charge, we make things happen that really matter to everybody. And we have a whole agenda that has been sitting on Mitch McConnell's desk, like bringing down the cost of prescription drugs and raising the wage and having equal pay for equal work, big infrastructure bill. All of those things are coming. And I am very hopeful that we will have a President Biden and a Democratic Senate and can really make these things come true for the people in our districts.
Yeah, and on that note, while you're with us tonight, your thoughts on what's happening with the presidential election. Still very close and no projected winner at this point.
That's not a surprise. We knew this would be a nail biter. We know that there are lots of outstanding ballots, that mail-in ballots take longer to count. And I think everybody just has to, however difficult it is, just kind of cool our heels and wait and let the ballots be counted and see who won this election.
And any thoughts on what is happening as we see some demonstrations or some marches starting to happen in Seattle? We've seen some in Portland as well. And what could potentially happen nationwide as the night continues?
You know, I have to say that I've been watching the numbers and other returns, and I was not yet aware. And so I hope that people remain peaceful, that we let this election play out, that we trust the process, and that we let the people's voice be heard. So I would encourage calm and patience.
Okay, Representative Schrier, thanks so much for being with us tonight, and good luck to you.
Thank you.
Well, we are expecting former Vice President Biden to be speaking momentarily here. And when he walks up, we will try to get to him. In the meantime, let's get to King 5's Ted Land. He's in Seattle, where we have seen a couple of different marches. And I know you're following along. A lot of police, a lot of protesters, despite the weather. Ted, set the scene for us.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out on the streets tonight, and it actually got pretty hectic about 30 minutes ago. Right behind this van here where the flashing lights are, there was an altercation between some of the demonstrators and police, and they just arrested somebody, put them in the back of that van there. We have some video from earlier, though. As the group was moving through here, there was a pickup truck that had stopped in the intersection, and officers descended on that truck, surrounded it, broke the window, pulled out the driver, and arrested the driver. Seattle police just tweeted, I believe this is the same case, but Seattle police just tweeted that they had arrested a driver associated with the protest. They said a driver became separated from the larger group and drove over a barricade through an SPD bike line. The driver was arrested at the scene, no injuries. We believe that is associated with the march that we just saw, although there are different groups marching on the streets tonight through different parts of the city. There was a large demonstration of people marching up Mercer. They basically had it blocked off to traffic, and then they continued south after we saw that arrest. There's another group marching closer into downtown tonight. Some of them started at Capitol Hill, had a rally of sorts, gave some speeches, did some chanting, and then hit the streets. You know, we were listening in to some of their speeches, and they were saying it doesn't matter who prevails tonight, whether it's Trump or Biden. They're emphasizing that there are some major problems in this country that they see existing no matter who wins the presidency tonight, and that's what'll keep them out on the streets. You know, it's, as anyone who lives in Seattle or the region knows, this is nothing new to have marchers on the streets on a weekly basis. So this is their opportunity to be out here tonight, and we'll keep following them and see what happens next.
All right, Ted Land reporting live for us in Seattle. Thank you. We'll check in with you shortly. Let's get to some of the results that we have coming in. Now, these are the results here in Washington state, the number of voters who have voted in the presidential election. So 61% of voters here in Washington voting for Joe Biden, 37% for Donald Trump, and this is with 71% of votes counted.
We already called the governor's race, but we'll show you the numbers here. This was 71%, and you've got 62% of the vote going for Governor Jay Inslee. He will have his third term as governor.
Let's take a look at Lieutenant Governor, two Democrats in this race, and Representative Denny Heck leading right now, 58% to Senator Marco Lias's 42%.
And a closer one tonight, that's for Secretary of State Republican Kim Wyman, holding on there right now. This is with 71% of the vote in as well. She has a slim lead over Gail Tarleton, 52% to 48%. Well, I can tell you tonight that Congressman Derek Kilmer is headed for a third term. He joins us now. I know it's still early and there's still some numbers to be counted, but how are you feeling so far?
Well, I feel good about my race. Obviously, there's a lot about the national election that we don't know yet, but folks can be certain I'm going to keep fighting to get our economy on track and working to fix what's broken in our government.
Wanted to ask you about the last 4 years and what you think your biggest accomplishment was.
I represent a district that has not seen the growth and prosperity that folks have seen up in Seattle. So the big mission in my office is just creating more economic opportunity for more people in more places. And that looks different in different parts of my district. In Tacoma, we've been working to extend the light rail and make sure that we protect the Port of Tacoma. In the rural parts of our district, we've been working hard on rural broadband. But, frankly, as we look at the biggest challenge facing our country right now, it's this pandemic. And as a guy whose background was working in economic development, I've been really active in the support for small businesses, making sure that we provided a lifeline for those Main Street employers that are really the backbone of the economy of the district I represent.
What would you say, is there anything that you were hoping to get passed or to work on that you maybe just couldn't get through with the divide between the House and the Senate, that maybe a shift in power there in the Senate, if there were one, that might help you out?
Another COVID relief package, I think, is just critical. We've got to crush this virus, and we've got to get this economy back up off the ground. And House Democrats back in May passed a bill called the HEROES Act to provide additional support to folks who are really struggling right now. When someone calls my office and said, I lost my job or I've lost my business because of this pandemic, I'm not sending them a form letter. I'm calling them. And there's just tremendous pain and tremendous hurt. And I think the appropriate response from the federal government is not to turn their back on those people and say you're on your own, but rather to say we've got your back. And whether that's nutrition assistance or housing assistance or extended unemployment or helping those small businesses weather this storm, I think that's an important role for the federal government. And we've passed a bill out of the House back in May. We passed it again in October. So far, we haven't seen anything pass out of the Senate. I hope that changes.
Congressman, thank you so much. Appreciate it. And good luck on your next term.
All right, we're just getting word that former Vice President Joe Biden about to speak. Let's listen in.
Good evening. Your patience is commendable. We knew this was going to go long, but who knew we're going to go into maybe tomorrow morning, maybe even longer. But look, we feel good about where we are. We really do. I'm here to tell you tonight, we believe we're on track to win this election. We knew because of the unprecedented early vote and the mail-in vote that it was going to take a while. We're going to have to be patient until the hard work of tallying the votes is finished. And it ain't over till every vote is counted, every ballot is counted. But we're feeling good. We're feeling good about where we are. We believe one of the nets has suggested we've already won Arizona, but we're confident about Arizona. That's a turnaround. We also just called it for Minnesota, and we're still in the game in Georgia, although that's not one we expected. And we're feeling real good about Wisconsin and Michigan. And by the way, it's going to take time to count the votes. We're going to win Pennsylvania. I've been talking to folks in Philly, Allegheny County, Scranton, and they're really encouraged by the turnout and what they see. Look, we could know the results as early as tomorrow morning, but it may take a little longer. As I've said all along, it's not my place or Donald Trump's place to declare who's won this election. That's the decision of the American people. But I'm optimistic about this outcome. And I want to thank every one of you who came out and voted in this election. And by the way, Chris Coons and the Democrats, congratulations here in Delaware. Pardon me? Hey, John, the Gov, yeah, the whole team, man. You've done a great job. I'm grateful to the poll workers, to our volunteers, our canvassers, everyone who participated in this democratic process. And I'm grateful to all of my supporters here in Delaware and all across the nation. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And folks, you heard me say it before, Every time I walk out of my grandpa's house up in Scranton, he'd yell, "Joey, keep the faith." And my grandma, when she was alive, yelled, "No, Joey, spread it. Keep the faith, guys. We're going to win this." Thank you, thank you, thank you. Your patience is great. Let's walk over here.
And we were just listening to the former Vice President, Joe Biden, saying that he believes that they're still on track to win the election, and speaking to supporters tonight. Let's go ahead and get to Chris Daniels. Actually, we're going to just...
Chris is still getting set up, and I know he's listening to us, resetting the map. And Chris, I'll toss you this way, because you heard the former vice president talk about some of the states that there may be Georgia. He's hopeful for Minnesota. We now see that the map is Florida has gone to President Trump. We knew that was going to happen. But Georgia and Pennsylvania, if you just look over the state, hover over it, it looks much more in favor for President Trump. But the big counties there have only been counted at like 43% in Philadelphia, and I think 18% in Pittsburgh, and those are heavy Biden districts, and so the numbers can be deceiving depending on how you're looking at them.
Yeah, in terms of the upper Midwest, that so-called blue wall that Donald Trump broke through 4 years ago, that is where it looks like this election is going to come down to when we talk about the 10 electoral votes in Wisconsin, the 16 in Michigan, the 20 in Pennsylvania. That's the blue wall that Joe Biden needs to turn tonight, and that is where you just heard from him. He remains optimistic. Over the course of the evening, yes, these are numbers. This is where the trend line is now, but these are not all the official calls, but you can see the mix of red and blue. Just in the last about half hour or so, a lot of people like to criticize the New York Times needle. It has now trended back towards Joe Biden. The reason why is because a majority of the votes that have been counted there tonight have been in the rural communities. The votes in Atlanta proper have not fully been counted. That's where the remainder of the votes need to be counted in Georgia, is in Atlanta and these suburban communities. So if we start looking at the Electoral College and talking about Joe Biden's path to victory and why he is optimistic tonight, Arizona is one of those states that if he puts it in his column and it looks like it is trending in that direction based on what has happened in Phoenix and Maricopa County, he's looking better. If he can win Nevada, he gets up to 240, again, based on the math that we know right now. But if you look at that upper Midwest, that's the key. Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, that would put him over the top. If Georgia continues to trend along with what the New York Times is saying tonight, then he gets over 300. But that's a lot of ifs. None of that is decided right now. And so that is why we have uncertainty, and there doesn't look like will be any sort of decision tonight. So that is kind of the state of affairs with the presidential election. We should put probably Hawaii is going to be trending in Joe Biden's direction as well. So that's another additional 4 electoral votes. So it's still a lot of math to process, and it looks like it's going to be a long night and morning ahead.
Just what we were hoping it wouldn't be, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. Chris, we'll check back with you in a bit. Thanks.
All right, let's go to our Vanessa Mashanya now in the newsroom, tracking what's happening through social media, and particularly what's happening in Seattle right now, as we've seen a lot of people out on the streets, Vanessa.
Yeah, that's right. There has been multiple arrests so far tonight where simultaneous protests have happened in Seattle, mostly the downtown area. But we do have some new information and some new video from police. So we want to get to that right now. So we now know that officers, they say they have arrested an additional person for damaging a parking meter with a hammer. Officers say they recovered the hammer as well as a bottle of bourbon from that man. And I believe that this is video of that arrest. Again, this has really been concentrated around the Mercer Street area, kind of butting up to I-5. And there's actually been a concern tonight from State Patrol as well as Seattle police that protest might bleed onto the freeway. We also have this video from our Ted Land, who's been on the ground there for the past hour or so following the protests, this is one of the arrests that he witnessed. This, he says, is at Mercer and Fairview. They say officers actually smashed a window to a vehicle and then arrested a man, and he said that the group is continuing to march south. So again, there are, from what we understand, multiple groups of protesters. There's been some property damage we've seen, and we've also seen a handful of arrests for sure. And we've also been watching what's been going on in Portland. This is from our sister station, KGW. She said that protesters in Portland, they say they're heading down east in the city, as well as some protesters openly carrying guns. So that's another situation that we're keeping an eye on. But again, simultaneous protests happening in Seattle, guys. We're going to keep monitoring the situation, looking at social media. But for now, I'll send it back to you guys.
All right, Vanessa, thank you for that update. As we head to break, let's take a look at some more results that we have here. Secretary of State incumbent Kim Wyman leading right now with 52% of the votes. Gail Tarleton with 48, and now State Superintendent Chris Rakedahl leading that race, 57 to 43%.
Up next here, we have Congress District 8. We just had heard from Kim Schrier a short time ago, but you can see she has that one by 8%.
And a look at Congress District 10. Marilyn Strickland leading 58%, Beth Dolia with 42%. We'll be right back. Welcome back as we continue looking at the results coming in. This is for Seattle Proposition 1. This is for transportation funding. It is being approved overwhelmingly by voters at this point, 82% to 18%. And this is for King County Prop 1. This is for the much needed funds for Harborview, and this is being approved. We're calling this approved at 78% to 22%. And a look at results for the King County Charter 5. This is for appointing a sheriff. So this is being approved at this point, 57% to 43%. That's with 75% of votes in, so still votes being counted. We have not called that race yet.
All right, we're going to get to King 5's Eric Wilkinson, who's in Everett tonight, covering the Congressional District 1 and 2, and has some of the results there. Eric?
Right, they're turning out the lights here at the Snohomish County Elections Headquarters. But before we do, we want to give you an update. No big surprise here tonight. King 5 calling the two big congressional races up here in the North End. Incumbent Democrat Rick Larson will return to the nation's capital for an 11th term, and incumbent Democrat Susan DelBene will return for a 5th term. We spoke with both of them earlier tonight about their plans, their top priorities for the next 2 years, and they told us that both the coronavirus pandemic and the economy, the recovery of the economy, those will be their two top priorities moving forward. Back to you.
Eric Wilkinson in Everett for us. Those ones pretty easy to call tonight.
All right, let's get some more results coming in here. Our producer telling us that we're going to take a look at Congressional District 8. Let's see if we can get those numbers on the board.
And a lot to get through. You just heard a couple of them, so we know that Rick Larson's returning, Susan DelBene's returning. I don't know which ones we're bringing up right now.
I think we're going to 8. Let's see.
Popping it up.
All right, here we go. That's
computers.
Yeah, that's Representative Kim Schrier. We spoke to her earlier this hour. She does lead that race right now by 8 points. She is the first Democrat to hold that seat. Republicans are hoping that Jensen could return that back to the Republican stronghold. It's historically been a Republican congressional seat, but Schrier leading tonight. Still, though, many votes to be counted.
You see there 72% in, and that's going to be pretty much what we have tonight. We get one large massive ballot dump, and then they will count those until tomorrow, and we'll get some more, and they'll continue to trickle in throughout the rest of the week. Let's get to Vanessa Mashani right now, talk a little bit about what we've seen. I don't know if are you covering the breaking news right now?
I think we just got a tweet from President Trump. Is that right, Vanessa?
Okay. Yes. This is breaking news, just not what's happening in Seattle, but more so in the Twitterverse. So we just got a tweet from President Trump that's raising a few eyebrows right now, but let's get to it right now. So here's his Twitter account, and he says just a few minutes ago that I'll be making a statement tonight, a big win. This, of course, the race has been very close so far. You know, we just heard from Joe Biden, so we're not really sure what that means, if he's trying to declare victory before the results have showed that. But we're also seeing a tweet that's just recently been flagged as by Twitter as disputed or might be misleading, but there also says that he's up big, but they're also trying to steal the election. So again, lots of eyebrow raising from President Trump's Twitter account, but we're going to watch for maybe some clarification on what exactly he means and what statement he's going to make, but I'll send it back to you guys.
Okay, Vanessa, thank you. The News at 10 with Mark and Joyce coming your way next. Stay with us.
Taking advantage of same-day registration, record voter turnout in our state surges until the final moments.
They made a decision to continue on the path of progress.
A rare third term. Jay Inslee defeats Lauren Culp, keeping his job as governor.
Despite the loss, a party in Tenino with a lot of support for the Republican challenger. What Culp is saying tonight.
The makings of a long night and possibly beyond. Some states won't have a final presidential tally for days.
Thank you for joining us for Election Night 2020. I'm Joyce Taylor.
And I'm Mark Wright. Good evening. It's a historic election with voters across the country waiting tonight to see who our next president will be. The results are still up in the air. As of right now, there is no clear winner between President Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. As you can see right now, this is the state of Washington results where, of course, Biden, no surprise, is leading 61% to 37%.
But nationally, it is still too close to call. President Trump tweeted just moments ago saying this: "We are up big, but they are trying to steal the election. We will never let them do it. Votes cannot be cast after the polls are closed." Meantime, Joe Biden spoke just a few moments ago, asking voters to be patient. Listen.
Look, you know, we could know the results as early as tomorrow morning, but it may take a little longer. As I've said all along, it's not my place or Donald Trump's place to declare who's won this election. That's the decision of the American people.
So we want to turn to our King 5 chief political reporter, Chris Daniels, for analysis on the polling results nationwide so far. Chris?
Well, we aren't going to have an answer, it looks like, tonight. But what you just heard from the former Vice President Joe Biden is that he remains optimistic. And this is why, looking at the map, not all of this is final. There have been some calls by the Associated Press. What you're seeing with the colors here, I just want to stress, is just how the early voting is leaning Republican or Democrat in the race for 270. But as far as Joe Biden is concerned, he's looking at locking down Arizona. You can see how that number changes when I press on Arizona there.
Chris, unfortunately, we have lost your audio. Might have to change a battery. You've been talking all night. We'll get back to you. Basically, what Chris is saying is that there's still several battleground states that are too close to call. So let's get to our political analysts, Ron Sims and Scott McClellan.
That's right, gentlemen. Ron, let's start with you. Your perception of the national race tonight.
It's going to be a long morning, a long night and an early morning, and I don't know whether it's going to be resolved very quickly. But it's interesting because California, when they come in, when Nevada comes in, Arizona comes in, Washington and Oregon, that really moves the electoral count up for Vice President Biden very, very significantly. And I haven't heard discussion nationally about that, but that's a lot of electoral votes.
To both of you, and Scott, you answer first. The Democrats went into tonight thinking that they had many paths to victory, paths that they started to see fade away, with Texas going to Trump and Georgia appearing to go to Trump, although maybe too close to call. It's hard to say, but the paths are narrowing for the Democrats. What do you make of what you've seen from the maps and the way the electoral votes are falling so far?
Well, I still feel better if I'm in the Biden campaign than if I was on the Trump campaign at this point. Biden still has more of a path to victory than Trump does at this point. If you look at those Rust Belt states, and the votes that are out are still in the big cities, which are going to trend big for Biden. And it's a matter of, can they make up the difference that is there right now with Trump in the lead in those states? Wisconsin, it looks like, definitely can make up the difference. Then we'll see how it comes down in Pennsylvania. But then you start looking at every single state that's a battleground state. You look at Nevada, that's one that is considered a battleground. That's 6 electoral votes. You look at the congressional districts in Nebraska and Maine. Remember there, it's broken up not just by the state, but by the congressional districts. Every single electoral vote could matter. And then what happens in Georgia? Atlanta is still out, as was being reported just a few minutes ago. And if Atlanta comes in, could it overtake the lead from Trump and give the state to Biden. That would be a huge victory for Joe Biden. So there's still a lot more that's in play for Biden than in play for Trump. And Trump has little margin for error. He's got to win Pennsylvania, but that still doesn't get him over the top. He's got to, particularly if he loses Arizona.
So, Ron, let me ask you about what we're seeing tonight. Moving forward, a lot has been compared this election to previous elections. Does this election look at all like any other elections to you?
I have never seen an election like this, where normally you see momentum by at least one person that is so significant that you can easily say that person's going to be victorious. This is going to be this is one of the most historic elections in terms of how tight it was, how difficult it was to discern who actually won, and basically going into a lot of data systems saying, okay, how do we find out who has the magic number to be the president in Electoral College? And that's going to take a lot of work.
The thing is, and we're out of time, but I just want to ask and remind our viewers of this, Scott. This election's unlike any we've seen because of the pandemic and the record-breaking early voter turnout. These states, the battleground states that we're talking about, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, a lot of the vote has not been counted. So people do need to be patient, and they do need to understand that the votes are not counted yet. Mm-hmm. Correct?
Absolutely. I think calm and patience is a good thing to emphasize tonight. We're going to know a lot more probably by mid-morning, maybe sooner. And we may even have to wait a couple more days, though, until we know the final results. But as someone who lived through the 2000 campaign, I can tell you patience helps at this point. We're going to know sooner than we did then what the results is in this election. And if you're a Biden person, you shouldn't give up hope by any means. If you're a Trump person, you have little margin for error there on his side.
This is when we need to have faith that the system is going to work as it is supposed to. Gentlemen, we'll get back to you. We want to move on to some other races that we're following tonight, to some local races. Governor Jay Inslee will have a third term as the governor of Washington. He won tonight against his challenger, Lauren Culp. As you can see the results here, 62% to 38%, but he has been called the winner tonight.
We want to get to King 5's Drew Mickelson. He's in Olympia tonight. He's been tracking the governor's campaign. Drew, good evening.
Good evening, Mark and Joyce. Governor Jay Inslee called it a great night. This was a race that the Associated Press called just moments after the ballots were being collected, or at least the polls closed at 8 o'clock. Take a look at these latest numbers. These are the numbers that we have for this evening. 62% of voters across the state wanted to send Jay Inslee back for a third term. 38% of the voters at this point backing his challenger, Lauren Culp. The governor says he now has a mandate for two of his hot issues: climate change and battling COVID.
No matter who you supported in this election, Trudy and I are going to get up every single morning trying to figure out how we can help to improve your lot in life and allow you to realize your dreams. That's what we do. It's because we understand we have some unprecedented challenges that have faced our state.
As for the presidential race, the governor said a lot of votes still need to be counted. He said that Americans are going to be, quote, on tenterhooks for days. He's calling for maximum civility and for patience. He says that there have been some talks of protests. We know there's some up in Seattle, but nothing here in Olympia. There was talk of that, but that has not been the case here on the Capitol campus. Now let's go to Tenino, not too far from where we are in southern Thurston County, where my colleague Natalie Swaby has been with challenger Lauren Culp. Natalie?
Well, Drew, that's right. About 40 minutes ago, Culp addressed his supporters, and he did not accept defeat. Instead, his message was, we need to wait for more votes to be counted. Just listen to what he had to say.
We're seeing some irregularities.
This,
to
he was
me, said something more than just the Republicans or the Democrats. This said a constitutional conservative, and that's what I am too. My life, in the United States and in the state of Washington is ruled by our Constitution, and that's what Lauren Culp is all about.
Okay, you're hearing from a supporter there. That's Beth Healy of Carnation. She's saying that's why she's supporting Culp. But Culp tonight did tell people here that he had some concerns about irregularities with some of the races that are coming in. He says, let's wait for all the votes to be counted. And as people were leaving here tonight, they echoed his words. So that's just some of what we're hearing here in Tenino, where they did have a big rally tonight. But as you can see behind me, right now they're wrapping it up. Live in Tenino, Natalie Swaby, King 5 News.
All right, Natalie, thank you. Now to the lieutenant governor's race. Congressman Denny Heck and Senate Floor Majority Leader Marco Lias are competing for that open lieutenant governor's seat. As you can see right now, Denny Heck with a fairly comfortable lead with 71% of the vote in, 58% to 42%. Both candidates are Democrats who advanced in the state's top two primary. That seat opened up after Cyrus Habib vacated it to join the clergy. And coming up in our next half hour, we will have a live interview with Congressman Denny Heck.
We're going to get back to some results in just a moment. But first, we want to get to some news that's been breaking throughout the evening. Protesters taking to the streets of Seattle tonight. Let's get to King 5's Ted Land. And Ted, you said several arrests have already been made tonight. Is that right?
Yeah, we've seen multiple arrests as this group and another group have made their way through the city. We're on 11th right now on Capitol Hill, heading across Pine, right on the corner of Cal Anderson Park. Group of police. And they've been winding their way through South Lake Union, coming up Denny, coming up Pike, and then turning and coming down this street. And the police really keeping a really tight space between the demonstrators, trying to keep them moving. Earlier in the evening, we did see some arrests as they were blocking traffic on Mercer Arcade and driven pretty close to a bike line, and they were trying to stop that driver. But you can just look at the pace that we're moving at here. Nobody's stopping because as the group turns a corner, more police will move in on their bikes and with vehicles behind them. They have a car off to the left here. You can see with the announcements as they go through the streets here, telling the group that they have to disperse. They're doing some dispersal orders here. And also making announcements to the community. Force, they said that at some point, some of the people in the group have damaged property and assaulted police. So they're making those announcements periodically and trying to keep this group on the move tonight so that they don't stop. There's two different groups. One of them, another one, I think made their way back to another park closer to South Lake Union. And when we were hearing them talk on the loudspeaker earlier, they were saying, you know, it doesn't matter who wins tonight. They're not really reacting to anything that they're seeing in the polls or the election returns. They say it doesn't matter who wins tonight. They think that both candidates.
Unfortunately, Ted, we lost you. I was going to ask you to be still for a moment because your signal was going in and out. So when we get back to Ted, we'll get more information about what they were actually protesting. We've been talking for the last week about the huge voter turnout across the country. The New York Times reporting that nationally 101 million votes were cast early. In King County, we learned this afternoon that more than 1 million ballots had been scanned at the county elections headquarters in Renton. We spoke with a first-time voter.
Nobody ever in my family has ever voted, so I feel like it's very important for me to speak up for my family and set a good example.
How do you feel seeing all of this engagement, the lines and everything?
It's pretty nerve-wracking, but it is what it is.
King County elections officials have predicted a 90% voter turnout with the county. The Secretary of State's office showing a 72% voter turnout for King County so far.
We want to turn now to the 10th Congressional District. That race represents parts of Pierce, Thurston, and Mason counties, at least the district does. Former Tacoma Mayor Marilyn Strickland faces State Representative Beth Dolio. And as you can see right now, 58% for Strickland, 42% to Dolio. Let's get right to King 5 Sebastian Robertson. So, Sebastian, if either candidate wins, they will both have titles of being first in different ways. Sebastian, can you hear us?
Yeah, Pierce County, the story really here is going to be the tremendous voter turnout that this county experienced. The big race here was District 10, two women, both Democrats, hoping to represent Washington State in D.C. That race now is being led by a pretty comfortable margin by one of the candidates there, Strickland, taking 52% of the votes over her opponent's 31%. I spoke to Strickland. She's the former mayor of Tacoma, who says she is excited by the support, excited by the win, but acknowledges that when she gets to D.C., the state, the country will still be in this pandemic as she works to move District 10 out of this. She mentioned even the possibility of having PPE equipment, manufacturing being brought to her district in District 10, one of the early things she's going to be working on. But here in District 10, there's a race for sheriff and a race for District 10, which we just talked about there. A couple of other big races here, but by the end of the day, when this is all said and done, the big story here will likely be the tremendous voter turnout. I spoke to the Pierce County auditor. She tells me that by 6 p.m. Or by 8 p.m., at the time that the ballot boxes closed, they were on pace for 85% voter turnout. Surprised not only by that, but by the number of people that showed up at the last minute to not only drop off ballots, but to register to vote. Back to you.
So, unfortunately, we will still be in the middle of this pandemic. And so we are going to need a national strategy to address this with testing, contact tracing, and my hope that we're actually going to manufacture the personal protective equipment right here domestically, hopefully in the 10th district. And understanding that, we have to take care of this because people have to feel safe going back to school, going back to work.
And that is Strickland enjoying a comfortable lead in the race for District 10. We'll send it back to you.
All right, Sebastian, thank you. A look now at King County's busiest ballot drop box. That's in Ballard. It saw a steady stream of voters all the way up until the last minute tonight. And don't forget to text the keyword app to download the King 5 app for the very latest news, weather, and sports.
And speaking of the weather, let's get a quick check of the weather. Craig Herrera giving us an update before the break.
All right, well, we do have a lot of showers moving through this evening. We've got another front coming through tomorrow, and that does mean more rain for us tomorrow. The direction's coming in from the south, so it will be a warmer system. Temperatures will get up into the 60s, and look how soggy it looks. Here's a look at the estimated rainfall totals by the end of the day, 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch of rain. We've got another system coming in on a Thursday. I'll have timing on that coming up in just a bit.
Big duty in this country.
Thank you for voting. Yes, of course. For allowing me to.
And I think that voting is an honor that we have in the United States, and I think that that should be celebrated.
So great to hear all the people getting out to vote. Another big race tonight is the 8th Congressional District. It is an expansive, very diverse district. It covers parts of King, Pierce, Chelan, and Kittitas counties. U.S. Representative Kim Schrier facing Republican challenger Jesse Jensen. With 72% of the vote in, she is leading 54% to 46%. Republicans had hoped to win back the 8th Congressional District. We still don't know, but again, the race she's leading by a pretty good margin. 2 years ago was the first time a Democrat had won that district, 2018. King 5's Glenn Farley's been tracking this race all night. What's the latest, Glenn?
Well, the latest is that we finally have numbers from Chelan County. Now, I'm outside of one of the King County voting boxes here in Issaquah. Issaquah is really at the westernmost extreme of the 8th Congressional District. This is where the population is. The territory is on the other side. Now, we just got some updated numbers, including Chelan County. That puts Kim Schrier ahead at 53% and change, and Jesse Jensen behind her at 46% and change. King 5 talked to Dr. Kim Schrier earlier this evening.
I mean, we're feeling good, right? A lot of these results aren't even coming in from today. As we know, and what we've been seeing is that, you know, the Republican gap has been closing very tightly, and we're seeing trend numbers.
I think they will hold. I think we're getting, you know, representative numbers from all of the parts of the district, but we'll wait, you know, and there's still a lot of votes to be counted. So I feel good about these numbers. I feel really good about the way that I've served this district, traveling everywhere, 67 town halls, joining the agriculture committee, just making sure that I really could faithfully represent the 8th district.
So my apologies there. We first went to Jesse Jensen. I talked to him earlier this evening. But the numbers are very interesting. One of the things that Dr. Kim Schrier has really had to perform on, and what you have seen in her fairly extensive advertising during this campaign, was her pitch to the agriculture committee, the agricultural folks in those states, like Kittitas, like Chelan, even a piece of Douglas County over there. But when you look at the numbers, the population, there's more population here based on the latest numbers that are in so far. She has about 60% of the voters in her district within King County. Live in Issaquah, Glenn Farley, King 5 News.
Glenn, thank you for that. We want to now go to Vanessa Mashanya in the newsroom. Monitoring social media tonight, a lot of things going on, not only protests, but the elections. Vanessa, take it away.
Hey there, Mark. Yeah, we've been seeing some tweets come in, some reactions to some victories in our local races here. So I want to get right to those. So Pramila Jayapal, she's been very active on Twitter tonight, saying, you know, wow, we did it decisively, 85% and 544 votes. Thank you, Washington District 7. She says she's humbled, grateful, and ready to serve again. Jay Inslee, he's celebrating on Twitter as well. He says, thank you, Washington. I'll never stop fighting for you. And he says in that graphic there, we did it. Now, referendum 90, that passed, the sexual education referendum on your ballot. So we have some campaign co-managers here. They were FaceTiming each other in excitement that R90 passed. And also Chris Reichdahl, he won the incumbent state superintendent. He says, thank you, Washington voters. We have a lot of work ahead of us. He says, I'm all in. So we will continue to monitor as we are still getting results from our own local races here. But for now, I'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
All right, Vanessa, thank you so much. And you talked about Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal with 85%, the winner of that second term tonight. Congratulations. She joins us live. Great to have you with us. And again, congratulations, Congresswoman.
Thank you so much, Joyce. My third term. I'll be going into my third term now.
Of course, your third term. Double congratulations, triple. Listen, I want to start with your reaction first to the very close presidential race tonight.
Well, I think that, you know, we all had hoped that this would be decided quickly, but we knew that it probably wouldn't. We knew that we would be waiting probably up to a couple of days for the results. I mean, the reality is there were a lot of people voting by mail, And so I tweeted earlier tonight that everyone should just stay calm, stay peaceful, stay hopeful, and let's wait for these results to be counted. Let's wait for every vote to be counted. We obviously have taken Colorado Senate seat back with Hickenlooper. That's great, but we lost one with Doug Jones in Alabama. We are watching the House races, and most of all, of course, we're looking to see what happens in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan.
There's been a lot said about the opportunities with this election to flip the Senate and what that might do with Congress. Are you optimistic about that?
I think that's looking tough, Joyce. We would have needed to take Georgia, and Georgia is still on the possibilities list. We are hearing that there's still a number of ballots that need to be counted in Fulton County that weren't counted apparently, and so we're waiting for that. So that could make a difference. North Carolina, we had hoped to take that seat back from Tom Tillis. So I think, it's the Senate was always a tough map, but there was a period of time there where we felt extremely hopeful. Now I think we're still hopeful, but it's going to be a tough road. We would need to win Maine, which has always been challenging, and a few others.
Let's talk about the just massive voter turnout, record-setting turnout, and also the reflection in the vote. The country is still so deeply divided. So now, as you go back to Congress for a third term, what do you think needs to happen to bring the country back together, regardless of who ends up in the White House?
I think the challenge of this is that we have had a president who has been so divisive. That's why we hope that we would be able to take back the White House, and we still do. The reality is that it has been difficult to work in a bipartisan way, and yet we have done it. I personally have passed a couple of bills that have been bipartisan bills, and Democrats have passed a number of bills, including, a Dream and Promise Act, immigration reforms of different kind. Even our $15 minimum wage bill had Republican sponsorship on it as we passed it, or Republican votes. But Mitch McConnell has blocked everything in the Senate, and Donald Trump has not been helpful to that. So something dramatic would have to change from the White House for the president to become a uniter, if it is Donald Trump. And if it is Joe Biden, then, I think we have a better shot, because Joe Biden is a deeply compassionate man who I think really believes that we need to serve all of America, not just those of your own party.
We appreciate your time tonight. The voters have not yet spoken officially. We're still waiting for the final results. So we appreciate your reaction to the count so far. And again, congratulations on your third term.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
We have much more coming up in our second half hour, including a live interview with Congressman Denny Heck, who's running for lieutenant governor against a fellow Democrat.
And we are keeping a very close eye on the presidential race, as well as the balance of power in the Senate. We'll be right back.
Washington. Joe Biden right now is leading President Trump 61% to 37%. That result not a surprise. So Joe Biden expected to get all 12 of Washington state's electoral votes.
We turn now to the state races. The Democrats have made some gains tonight. We spoke with the chair of the state Democratic Party, Tina Podlodowski.
First impressions is that we're doing really well in Washington tonight. Obviously, Governor Jay Inslee with an historic third term. We look to be picking up at least 2 state Senate seats with Helen Price Johnson and Tawana Nobles in the 10th and the 28th, respectively. Looks like 4 to 5 different state House seats could be pickups for us as well. So we're pretty excited about that.
And we talked with the chair of the state Republican Party, Caleb Heimlich, who says that the results have been disappointing for Republicans in Washington.
We've obviously got a decent amount of ballots still to count, between 600,000 and maybe up to 1 million, depending on ballots still coming in. So there's going to be a lot of close legislative races that could move in our direction in the coming days. So we'll wait and see and make sure that every vote in Washington state is counted.
And tonight, the Washington Secretary of State's office has tallied voter turnout so far at 67%. So let's check the balance of power in the U.S. Senate. And as we look at the results, this is not the balance of power in the U.S. Senate. Let's get to our King 5 political reporter, Chris Daniels, in the newsroom with analysis of the numbers. Chris.
Yeah, hi, Joyce. We're going to be talking, I think, about the balance of power in the Senate. That is one of the storylines tonight. It's probably not going to have an answer tonight, but we do have answers in the state races with Washington Governor Jay Inslee and other races as well. For more on that, let's bring in our King 5 News political analyst, the former Bush White House Press Secretary Scott McClellan, and the former King County executive and Deputy Director in the Obama administration, Ron Sims. Thanks again, guys. Well, we look at some of these state races, and it does look like the Democrats are having a good night, a wide margin in a lot of these races. Scott, what do you think about what we've seen so far, just on a state level tonight?
The only surprise is by the margin of victory. Governor Inslee reelected with a very strong margin of victory. Lauren Culp, it's probably not helpful for him to go out there and say there's still, there are questions about the votes. That's just not helpful. Inslee has clearly won this race with a big margin, the Attorney General as well. It's interesting to see that Kim Wyman appears that she's going to win. Still some votes to be counted, but I think she's probably in pretty good shape given that she won Snohomish and Pierce counties to overcome the deficit in King County. But really not too many surprises tonight, and just kind of seeing how some of the races played out in terms of the 10th Congressional District and some of the other legislative races that were just mentioned a little while ago. Good night for Democrats, obviously, overall.
Yeah, Ron, Scott was just mentioning the Secretary of State's race. That was going to be kind of one of the bellwethers tonight in the impact of President Trump on the down ballot. It does look like Kim Wyman is winning 35 counties right now out of 39, which follows along with what we saw on primary night. When you look at the state races and our first batch of numbers tonight, what stands out for you?
This state loves competence. When you look at the people who people are voting for, you see some really talented, smart, competent, innovative people. And I think it's the millennial influence. When you look at who votes, you have people who are, we call the older people like me, but you have this group of millennials, and I think they made quite an impression tonight. They put their stamp down and said, this is what we want for our future. We were the largest voting bloc, and they came out and voted very aggressively.
Yeah, another one, a race that didn't get a whole lot of attention, the Superintendent of Public Instruction. That looks like the incumbent will win by 14 points. Chris Rickdahl, there was a question, I think there was some concern amongst Democrats based on all the discussions about education and in-person learning that would potentially impact him, but it looks like he has got a healthy lead tonight by 14 points in a race that didn't get a lot of attention. Final thoughts here in the last 30 seconds, Scott, about the national race. So much talk tonight.
Well, yeah, we're not going to know. We're not going to know tonight, obviously, and hopefully we'll know, have a clearer picture in the morning when we see what's happening in those Rust Belt states of Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. And we need to see what happens in Georgia. We might know that sooner than those states even. But I think Wisconsin's probably going to stay in Biden's, or is going to go back to the Democratic side and be for Biden. So then it becomes Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia that you're looking at really closely, as well as keep an eye on the U.S. Senate. The Senate looks like it may stay Republican. That's a little bit of a surprise tonight.
Well, I think a lot of people in Washington State, like the old song goes, will have Georgia on their mind. That's it for now, Ron and Scott. Let's send it back to you in the studio.
All right, gentlemen, thank you. Meantime, two Democratic candidates are in the race for lieutenant governor in Washington. Congressman Denny Heck and Senate Floor Majority Leader Marco Lias are vying for that open seat. Right now, Heck enjoying a very comfortable lead, 58% to 42%. And Congressman Heck joins us live now. I guess congratulations are in order if these numbers stand. Thank you so much for joining us. My first question, Congressman, was it harder running against a fellow Democrat?
So I never defined the race as one wherein I would compare and contrast or attempt to elevate myself at the expense of my opponent, whether it was the one who was on the ballot or the one who was conducting a write-in. From the get-go, I decided I was just going to offer myself as a candidate with my values and my qualifications and let the chips fall where they may. They fell pretty good tonight, and I'm very humbled and grateful for it.
So what do you hope to accomplish in Olympia if elected? Come January, when the session convenes, what do you think the top priority should be?
Well, there's no question that before we even get to January, we've got to make sure that we can have the systems in place to undertake the legislative process, which is complicated enough in a socially distanced way. This is going to be unlike anything in our state's 130-year history. It's going to be awkward and cumbersome, and we're going to have to work really, really hard to do it competently so that, of course, the desirable policy outcomes can be achieved. But when we get there, we're going to be confronted with triple crises: COVID-19, the economic recession, and the budget shortfall. And in addition to those three, I think we darn well better take up the issues of climate change and racial justice. What we're going to have to do is narrow our focus and select priorities and stick to it in the context of a new process.
So twice in the past 20 years, and maybe three times if you count tonight's election, the candidate who wins the popular vote wasn't elected president. My question, Congressman, is do you think that Washington really should push for reforming or abolishing the Electoral College when it comes to electing president?
Yeah, I'm so over the Electoral College, but I dispute your premise, if I may. I think Joe Biden's going to end up being elected president, but it remains to be seen, and we got some more votes to count. I think that what we will do is imperil people's faith in our democracy if the person who wins the popular vote, which Democrats have 5 out of the last 6 times, do not end up being president. I think that will strain the faith of the electorate in the process. So, yeah, I'm so over it. I think it's time to move to a national popular vote.
All right. Well, if the current trends hold, our new Lieutenant Governor, Denny Heck, thank you so much for your time tonight, sir.
Thank you very much.
We want to look at some other results for you tonight. Let's start with the Secretary of State's race. In this race, incumbent Kim Wyman facing Democrat Gail Tarleton. Wyman seeking that third term, winning 35 of 39 counties, as you heard Chris Daniels say. That's the latest count. She's one of just 2 Republicans to hold a statewide office in Washington, leading 52 to 48%. In the race for Attorney General, the incumbent Bob Ferguson faced off against challenger Matt Larkin, 59% to 41%. Of course, he has made a name for himself, Ferguson has, by taking on multiple lawsuits against President Trump.
One of the most controversial measures on the ballot tonight, Referendum 90, it has been approved, 60% to 40%. That referendum affirms a bill passed in Olympia and signed by the governor this year, making way for age-appropriate sex ed to be taught in K-12 schools. Parents can opt out. if they want their kids not to receive that information. Well, supporting Referendum 90 is State Superintendent Incumbent Chris Rakedahl. Challenging him for the spot, Maya Espinoza, who's against that sex ed bill. And as you can see on the screen, Rakedahl with a comfortable lead, 57% to 43%. Rakedahl, a longtime educator, has led the state's public districts navigate the pandemic. Espinoza runs a Latino leadership group and suggests loosening reopening recommendations. Let's move to Congressional District 1. Incumbent Susan DelBene, a Democrat, keeps her seat against Republican challenger Jeffrey Beeler. The vote right there, 61% to 39%. That district encompasses the majority of Whatcom, Skagit, and Snohomish counties and a third of King County. For District Number 2, incumbent Democrat Rick Larson also keeping his seat tonight against Republican challenger Tim Hazelow. The results are on your screen, 66% to Hazelow's 34%. That district represents all of Island and San Juan counties from Bellingham south to Linwood.
Coming up, crowds have gathered across the United States tonight. King 5 law enforcement analyst Carmen Best joins us live after the break to talk about security measures that police departments around the country have in place tonight.
And don't forget to text the word results to 206-448-4545 for up-to-the-minute numbers in all of our elections. We'll be right back with much more coverage after this. Election coverage 2020. Take a look on your screen. Here in King County, this is a big proposition. Number one, calling for $1.7 billion in bonds for safety, upgrades, and improvements at Harborview Medical Center, overwhelmingly being approved right now, 78% to 22%. It would increase property taxes for property owners here in King County.
Joining us now, King 5 law enforcement analyst Carmen Best. She is, of course, a former Seattle police chief and multi-decade law enforcement officer here in the Northwest. And thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Joyce. Good to see you and Mark.
Always good to see you. I know you know the protests have started in Seattle. There have been groups that have gathered all across the country. So we want to talk about some of the security measures that police departments may be taking on because of this election night, and also what's to come? What is happening around the country tonight with departments?
Well, Joyce, I can tell you that a number of agencies, both local authorities and federal partners, have been preparing for potential civil unrest, while obviously hoping that they don't have to act. Command centers have been set up all across the country with the federal agencies, as well as local jurisdictions, ensuring that they had appropriate staffing. As you know, here in Seattle, they made sure that all officers were available to be at work over the course of the next few days. What really concerns me is that we've had a number of protests nationally, of course, and locally as well. Officer fatigue and the fatigue of all of the businesses around that are dealing with this. And this is day one. So we don't know how much more volatile and how many more days this could go on until this election is settled.
Well, that's what I was just going to ask you. This is just day one, and we know the vote count will go at least another day, potentially another week, maybe even longer. So what do you anticipate, knowing what we know with the pandemic, with people having been home and out of work, and on the heels of a summer of protesting? What do you anticipate, honestly, worst case scenario?
Well, you know, Joyce, we've been so polarized in this country on so many of these political issues. As you mentioned, the pandemic and just the confluence of all these events at once certainly make it a much more volatile situation than we've dealt with before, both locally and nationally. The potential, depending upon who is the winner, what allegations are made, who concedes or doesn't concede, or accepts or doesn't accept the presidency, that will have an impact on the number of people that are out and protesting. And so we really don't know. At this point, we just know that many people are gearing up for the potential for civil unrest and prolonged civil unrest. I'm hoping that it doesn't occur, but certainly recognizing under these unprecedented circumstances that there is a possibility that that will happen.
Well, we'll be talking with you again, probably often over the next several days. We appreciate your time, Chief Best. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Joyce.
Mm-hmm. Well, now to a congressional race that's covering the southern parts of our state. District 3 includes Clallam, Cowlitz, Grays Harbor, Mason, and Pacific counties. This is the rematch of 2016 between Republican incumbent Jamie Herrera Butler and Democratic challenger Carolyn Long. Tim Gordon has the latest on this race.
Well, as you know, this is a rematch in the 3rd Congressional District down here in Southwest Washington of a race from 2018. Jamie Herrera Butler, the incumbent, faced by challenger Carolyn Long again. And at this point, the incumbent has the lead. It's an 8 or 9 point lead. It's a pretty solid lead. I spoke with Jamie Herrera Butler, the Republican, just a while ago. She's sounding pretty confident. She's obviously not declaring victory at this point. There's still a lot of votes to be counted, but she is sounding confident and talking about plans for the future.
People here expect you to solve problems in a bipartisan manner to get things done. And that's how I've applied myself to this job. And I think that the votes that we're seeing at this point really demonstrate that that resonates with folks. So thank you, Southwest Washington. I'm really honored. And myself and my family, we're going to continue to put you first and work hard.
I also spoke with Carolyn Long. Carolyn Long is a longtime political science professor at Washington State University here in Vancouver. And again, this is her second challenge to the Republican incumbent. She is obviously not saying she's done. She's wanting to get all those votes counted. There are plenty still to go, but she realizes it's a bit of a deficit. But she certainly wants to give all the voters who came out the respect that they deserve, as she put it, to have those votes counted. She was talking about how in Clark County, where Carolyn Long actually has a lead, that she was talking about how people were lined up at the elections office to register and vote for the first time. And she wants all those votes counted. So this race is not over. It has been a very testy one, a lot of money spent, and a lot of pretty rough advertising going on down in this area during this race. But at this point, the incumbent, Jamie Herrera Butler, has the upper hand. Tim Gordon for King 5 News from Vancouver. Back to you.
Thank you. And that is with 71% of the vote in, so that race has not been called yet.
Yep.
Well, 8 o'clock was the cutoff, as you know, to turn in your ballots. Earlier today, despite the rain, a lot of people were in line to cast those ballots.
A lot of excited voters. Coming up, Craig Herrera has your forecast and how much rain we can expect tomorrow as we look at a very patriotic CenturyLink. News, we saw quite a bit of rain out there today, a number of accidents on the highways. Craig Herrera joining us now. So what does the morning commute hold for us, Craig?
Oh, Mark and Joyce, we've got another round of rain tomorrow for the morning commute and the commute home, and then another one right behind it. Let's get started with the radar. Good evening to you. You can see a lot of the rain still coming through at this hour. Rainfall totals 1/4 of an inch to an inch, and look at the numbers right now. We are sitting with 50s as a warm front's moving up ahead. Look at this great picture from Amanda Thornton DeWitt. A great shot, and one more from you from Chris Fabregas. Great shot today. I wanted to get you away from all of that and just kind of show you Reese's Pieces today. Says, hey, get the vote out. Showers, breezy tomorrow, 51 to 61 degrees. And here's a look at futurecast. So 7:30 tomorrow morning, we do have some scattered showers in the forecast. 12 o'clock, the warm front stalls, so the rain keeps coming down right through the evening hours. And then it does that again on Thursday, but a little bit cooler on Thursday. Estimated rainfall totals through the end of the day tomorrow, 1/10 of an inch of rain to about 1/2 an inch of rain. So not as much as we got today, but we will have some wind gusts about as strong as they were today again. This is 8 o'clock in the morning. Some of those gusts 30 to 40 miles per hour. By the time we get to the afternoon, we start to, or the evening hours, we start to lose some of those gusts, but then I think the winds pick up again a little bit Thursday morning, dying down by Thursday evening. All right, so highs tomorrow into the 60s. By the way, if you're traveling the passes, we'll have some showers at times. Snow level is way up at 8,000 feet. And here's a look at the 7-day forecast. 63 tomorrow as the warm front's coming through. We'll drop to the 50s on Thursday. On Friday, plan on temperatures back at 50 degrees. And this weekend, it looks like we start to clear on out. But it will be a very chilly weekend. We'll be back right after this short break.
While Seattle's celebrities did their civic duty, voted in this year's election. Here are just some of the pictures that they've posted on social media. Seattle Storm's Breonna Stewart, Sue Bird, as well as musician Eddie Vedder, and rapper Macklemore posting this adorable video of him voting alongside his daughter, showing her how it's done.
Oh, that's adorable.
Thank them all for sharing.
Yeah.
And thank you all, too, for sharing your pictures of the hashtag K5 vote. That's it for this hour of King 5 News.
We have much more coming up on King 5 News at 11, including the very latest in all of the local and national races.